Hey, it's Tim here. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the Snowflake Summit keynote. We're just going to watch the whole thing. This is going to be like an honest reflection. It's quite long. This video is long as a result of that. If you want the breakdown of this video, if you want something shorter than 20 minutes, go ahead and check the description and the first comment on this video. You'll find a link to my breakdown of that as soon as it's ready. Now, I have to say, I'm coming at this in lots of different hats. I've actually been a Snowflake customer myself for about 3 years. I actually use Snowflake to power the backend analytics for my channel. I pipe the data out of YouTube using the API. I use Fivetran to do that. So YouTube to Fivetran to Snowflake is basically the simple pipeline. Then I visualize it in Tableau. Sort of all these technologies doing amazing things together. And so what I've wanted to do for some time is start covering new technologies on this channel. This is going to be the next thing. I've got so many interesting announcements related to Snowflake coming up over the next few months. So stay tuned for that. Not just here on YouTube, but also on other places, if you know where I mean. So let's get stuck into this particular keynote. Let's break it down. I'm going to try and give my honest perspective on all of these things. But as ever, I'm new to this. I'm learning it just like you. So if you've got some feedback or some thoughts, put them in the comments below and we'll get stuck into that. Anyway, as ever, let's get stuck in.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Did you guys catch us on stage last night with Jensen?
Now, right out of the gate, that's already a bit of a flex. You know, Jensen is the NVIDIA CEO, and for the record, NVIDIA have been absolutely knocking it out of the park for the last, let's say, 3 years. Jensen made this big bet on AI, and he thought it was going to be the big revolutionary thing that would sort of catapult NVIDIA into the future. And as a result, pretty much every single AI breakthrough that has happened in the last few years has pretty much happened using NVIDIA hardware. If you don't know this, when you do a query into ChatGPT or when you do any sort of use of large language models, the computational power to run those models actually runs on graphical processors. Graphical processors have these specific mathematical computations that allow them to do that sort of operation very efficiently. And so that's why GPUs are typically used to train large language models. But then also when you run these queries and when you push all this sort of information into these models, GPUs tend to be able to process these things much faster. And so NVIDIA is pretty much the only company doing it at any sort of scale, any sort of power as well. And so there are other companies doing this stuff. You'll see companies like Apple and Google making chips for their own hardware, but fundamentally NVIDIA is doing it at scale. It's doing it in the enterprise, and it's also doing it on the consumer market as well. So pretty much all of their technologies are covering this capability. And if you look at the NVIDIA stock price, you can see they made a good bet at the right time. Anyway, let's carry on. What Frank is mentioning here is a session previous to this keynote where he had the NVIDIA CEO talking to this sort of particular aim. But anyway, let's carry on and see what we say.
Isn't that man incredible? What a force of nature. And I love his vision. You know, you just put the AI factory on the data and flip it on and poof, the insights starts flowing. And we're just going to show you that a little bit later on. It's a demo, of course, so don't take it too seriously. But you know, the two letters AI are being mentioned. It's almost like there's the only two letters left in the alphabet, right? And
right.
you know, I hear there's a drinking game going on in the back that every time I say AI, they have to do a shot. Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit sparing with the AI references just to kind of keep order here. But what we want to talk about, what I'm going to talk about in the next 15 minutes, so it'll be relatively quick because I'm going to vacate the stage and we're going to really show you some incredible things.
Good.
But we always say in order to have an AI strategy, we have to have a data strategy. And you're going to hear that, you know, more often
Absolutely,
in the next couple of days because we can't just turn it on and hope for a miracle to appear. Data strategy is something that, you know, I can't help but 3 times a day in a normal week, you know, I end up having the data strategy conversation, you know, with CIOs and all kinds of C-level people. Because it's a fundamental choice that you have to make on your journey. Because if you're not having your data strategy wired in, you cannot just sort of continue on with the past. You know, we got to make very specific choices so that we enable these AI factories, you know.
And I couldn't agree with this more. It's super interesting how lots of companies are jumping on the AI bandwagon. But as I've said in previous videos when we talk about Tableau, and actually something I'm going to be covering on another channel where we're going to focus on AI, AI is going to be the technology or the innovation that really exposes companies and shows you how much or how little they've invested in a data strategy and or data cultures, because ultimately, as Frank is saying, you can't just turn it on. Secondly, this is sort of an underappreciated aspect of this, is that you really do have to have really good understanding of what your data can do, what are the opportunities, and you have to have been sort of down this level of maturity in terms of your data strategy to actually even start thinking about AI. It's a very similar sort of comparison to, well, it's actually not that different. Predictive analytics as a concept. Once you get to the point where you're able to actually deploy predictive analytics in a way that can actually help your business, you're actually quite far down that sort of maturity scale. And so companies who are that far down, companies who've thought about that and are actually achieving results with those sort of capabilities, I think also stand to benefit here when it comes with AI. But if you're just starting out, if you're still pushing out Excel files and a lot of your analysts are still using basic tools to do all of this stuff, AI is just not going to help you. It's going to be a really difficult sort of innovation to bring in, because the largest, the most computationally intensive aspect, the most time intensive aspect of this is training systems, AI and systems on your data. And all the large language models that you've seen at the moment, they're general large language models. They're not specifically catered to your organization. And so if you want to capitalize on this stuff, you want to capitalize on the data that you already have, you're going to need to have to, A, have the expertise to work with AI and large language models. 2, have people who truly, genuinely understand your data and can help curate what goes into training these models. And then lastly, once you've trained the models, once you've actually got sort of the insight out of them, there's going to be an element of sort of assistance. All these good AI models have actually had a human element, essentially human intervention to make them better. And for that, you're not going to just need skilled people and skilled data analysts. You're also going to need your business engaging in that data conversation. So all 3 components of a good data strategy are going to be tested to the max. Anyway, let's carry on.
All the benefits that we're seeking from AI learning. So there's real choices to be made, as opposed to, we'll just perpetuate what we've been doing in the past. We're just modernizing, we're going to the cloud, we're using new technologies. Now, there are fundamentally different choices to be made along the way. So our data strategy, no surprise, is the data cloud. You can't shut me up about data clouds. They're my favorite 2 words in the dictionary these days. So for that occasion, we have, I'm descending the data cloud on Las Vegas. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. So it'll be here all week, and I'll move somewhere else next week. But the fundamental thing, about the data cloud is, look at this thing. We call it the snow globe affectionately, within Snowflake. And this is not a visual interpretation. This is an actual rendering. Every single white speck is a unique Snowflake account, and every line that you see in here is a data networking connection with another Snowflake account. And it's very dynamic because the data is flowing. So that's fundamentally what it is. Now, this is all, you're like, okay, 10,000 feet, 50,000 feet, very conceptual. So we'll drill down here just for sake of argument to see
what's interesting about this little visualization is obviously you've got nodes where you have things connecting. Super interested to see what those connections are and how they work. You can see there's an element to which some of them are coalescing around each other. Some of them seem to be, quite pivotal nodes. Maybe those are data providers, things that are coming from the marketplace. But I also love this really interesting trend where you've got lots of customers just sitting on the periphery. And I wonder where they are in terms of their journey. Are they new customers to Snowflake who are just, literally creating accounts, doing their own thing, not really sort of engaged in the marketplace and connect to other people? And therefore, is this visualization a good representation of Snowflake customers, or is this a representation of what Snowflake would like you to do with your data, i.e. they want you networking with other cloud providers, they want you sort of sharing your data and working with other setups? It's a really interesting thing. Of course, when you create a rendering, when you create a painting, when you create a picture, the perspective you take it from matters. It changes sort of your understanding of it. So seeing as this is Snowflake's own curated image of this, it's interesting sort of what they set out to achieve by visualizing it this exact way. I always think you can't take these things for granted. You can't just look at this and go, wow, I want to be in the middle. Like you've got to think like this was created in such a way to sort of communicate a message and to communicate where Snowflake wants to head with its platform. And I think what's really being shown here is, look, they're showing the power and capability of having all of this stuff in the cloud, making it easier for all these connections to happen and opportunities to come out of that. Anyway, that's just my take on that.
What's going on below the covers? And this is kind of a Google Earth-like kind of thing. We tried to make it look like that. And we drilled in to the data clouds of one of our great customers, Fiserv. Thank you, Fiserv, by the way, for letting us talk, because for a lot of people this feels very proprietary. But Fiserv is more than, okay, we're running Snowflake. They have data networking relationships with other entities. And I just want to use this by example to see, look, there's hundreds and thousands of these living in the data cloud. But for example, they have a connection with a company called Clover. That's actually a wholly owned subsidiary, of Fiserv. They, in turn, have a relationship with Heap Analytics. And they acquire that data to create customer 360 type of views.
I think it's exactly what I just said. It's now playing out. They're showing you, look, here's an customer, and thank you for letting us talk about this. And by the way, look at what they're doing. They're connecting with some of these other businesses, and this is how they're doing this. And they're sort of really trying to showcase this capability. Why? This is a USP of Snowflake. This is a core capability that it can do that is broadly quite hard for other databases to do. For other databases to do this, what they have to typically do is stand up a new environment, and in that environment, companies exchange information, but typically that environment is either co-located somewhere or shared. There's a lot of replication that goes on, and that replication in itself has costs in terms of bandwidth, traffic, storage, compute, all of that stuff almost has to get duplicated just for the purpose of sharing. And a USP of Snowflake is that actually a lot of that work is taken care of for you, and you can just get on with the ideation of setting that kind of connection with another business rather than having to worry about all of the issues that come out of that. And because of Snowflake's sort of decoupled setup with compute and storage being decoupled, it actually makes that integration, makes that sort of collaboration a lot easier.
Fiserv is a very large financial services concern. You probably remember First Union, credit card processing, things of that sort. So creating data is very, very, very central to how they operate and what they do for a living. But the data connections, they're like synapses. Not that I like to use that word, but they are creating synapses that are literally going all over the place. Right?
Whenever someone says
here's
that,
a relationship with one of their
that
banking clients, right? There is a fintech in there as well that either uses their data or provides data back to Fiserv. And it builds and builds and builds. We're just showing a few of them here. Carrot is actually a data as a services company that Fiserv has built itself, and that's how they provide data to other entities, in this case, ExxonMobil. Everything is Snowflake to Snowflake to Snowflake to Snowflake. So the point here of a data cloud is it's not defined by enterprise boundaries anymore. It's defined by your business relationships, defined by your ecosystem, and it's dynamic, right? You can build these connections, you can take them away, you can reconfigure them, and that's really what's going on every single day of the week all over the data cloud. Now, when I zoom back out, I'm just zooming out not completely. I'm just zooming out to the financial services data cloud. This is our industry data cloud. This is where all the entities that are in the financial services business come together. We now have 7 industry data clouds. So there's all these virtual different views, either as an institution, as an enterprise. I have my data cloud. Industries have their data clouds, and then we have the big Snowflake thing across 40 different regions all over the world. So I want to emphasize a couple of really key underpinning concepts here. So that
really shows that rendering is a marketing tool. That pretty much sums up that sort of trail of thought. It's a marketing tool designed to show you what you should be doing with Snowflake and the opportunities that come out of that. I think the financial services zoom out that he did, whatever you want to call that, that's again another big sort of call out. Hey, everyone in the sector, look, this is what's going on, and by the way, you all play the same game, and it's quite handy to be able to share data. Now, what is always interesting about this is that these sort of node diagrams make it look so easy and sort of flexible to do. At the heart of that is customer data, right? These companies are all doing businesses with people, and those customers, that data, the activities is generating lots of data points, and those data points are what's actually being exchanged here. And so he didn't touch on it here, but I think probably touch on it later. Like, you need to also bear in mind privacy and security concerns with moving data from people, especially in Europe and especially in some countries where there's quite high implications of moving customer data around. You need to also be treating the data in a very secure way, and Snowflake has features to handle that. But it's interesting that's not touched on here, especially when you call out to finance. Finance to me is one of those mostly heavily regulated industries, and so for him not to mention that is slightly strange. Maybe it's coming later, but I just wanted to sort of highlight that, just so that you're not sitting there going, oh, you can't do these. Like, yes, it's possible to manage all of those capabilities inside of the platform. So
what you see here is the data silo. 70 years ago, or according to Jensen, 60 years ago, when the first database was created, there was not a siloing problem because there was only one database. That was great. When there were two databases, now we have a siloing problem. Why is this table over here, not over there? Ever since, we've been mushrooming like crazy, right? This is an incredibly hard problem because silos are created just by running workloads. Silos
to be honest, this happens inside my own Snowflake platform.
You have to literally
just keep creating databases all the time. Very strong
strategic posture towards a single data universe without boundaries. Obviously, this is hugely important to enable the AI revolution. Take another shot. But any other form of data science, analytics, it's incredibly inhibiting and impeding, when these kind of boundaries say, okay, now we got to start pumping data across again, FTP, KPIs, all the three-letter acronyms. So unsiloing is really the core theme of what we try to do. This is like a matrix moment. Okay, we're evaporating the silos. Isn't that beautiful? But keeping it going like that is the hard part. Now, secondly, the data cloud doesn't just consist of structured data. Obviously, in the world of data warehousing, it was all structured data.
Snowflake has this concept of being able to support lots of different types of data, so structured data, semi-structured data, and structured data.
A couple of years ago, we really started to
we will do a video on what those three mean at some point in the future, but it's pretty straightforward. If you Google it, just have a look. You can find out more.
These applications are very much training on textual data. But the problem with unstructured data is, how does it become a full participant in analytical processing if we know very little about it, right? It may have a name and a timestamp, and what's inside of it, very human readable, but not readable for software. So last year, we acquired a company called Applica. Later on in the session, we're going to refer to this as document AI. This is the AI that we already acquired into, the talent and the technology more than a year ago, to help us derive structure from unstructured documents using language models and using AI techniques. I really love this rendering. You get this formless mass turning into.
So at this point, it's probably worth highlighting. I'm going to have to explain this. Unstructured data, in this case, he's talking about documents. Another form of unstructured data could be something like a video or a photo, where it's information. It's stored in a specific way, but it's not in a typical structure that a database would look at. Columns, rows, and metadata that come from that. So Applica, I think, have a capability. I don't know too much about Applica. I'm just going off what he's just said. But Applica have a capability of being able to process documents in a specific way. Using AI, but I'm sure using other technologies like OCR, optical character recognition, all of that stuff being bundled into a beautiful application called Applica. And I think, Snowflake acquiring that kind of company means that they've now got an ability to extract data from these often difficult to extract data from. I think a classic example is invoices in PDFs. So many companies trade invoices just by PDFs. That's all you get. You don't get an Excel or CSV file that you can do something with. And so the PDF becomes a data source. And so if you then have to go and scrape information out of a PDF, the current structure is to have someone manually do it. There are some technologies, if you look at Alteryx has a capability that kind of allows you to scrape PDFs. It's a little bit clunky, but it kind of works if you know what you're doing and you're doing it in a structured way. And technologies like Applica hopefully allow you to do this at scale inside of the database, meaning you can just put all your documents inside of the database and then have this technology sort of go and do this analysis for you. So that's a bit of context for that.
To a set of structures. But this really helps unstructured objects to become full participants in analytical processing, right? So that really amps up that opportunity. We're very excited about it. You're going to see more about it later this morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't stop there. One of the things that we have invested most of our engineering resources in terms of enabling the data cloud are workloads, right? I mean, the whole point of the data cloud is the work needs to come to the data. We want to stop the data from going to the work because that endlessly silos and re-silos the world.
Yeah.
So if we can bring the workload capabilities full spectrum from analytical to transactional to search and everything in between, then the data can stay put because the work can be executed effortlessly on that data. Now, there's a lot here, okay?
So just to explain that in more detail, what he's essentially talking about is, let's say you have a database with information in it, and you have your analytics team that wants to do analytical processing to that data. They maybe want to do some transformation. You might think of terms like ETL. You might want to then do some statistical analysis, and then data science on top of that, some predictive analytics, some workloads on top of that. What has typically happened in the past is your database is the source, but then you're constantly sort of extracting the data and taking it somewhere else to go and do the work, right? So because databases typically haven't had these tools inside of them, your database is just a store. Think of it just as like a cupboard or like a library. If you want to go read a book, you could read it in the library. It's possible to do that, but actually it takes quite a long time to read a book. So what you end up doing is taking the book home to do the work. And so this is essentially what he's explaining here. He's explaining that these workloads have typically had to move out of the context of the database, but actually they've been investing money and time into making sure that these workloads can happen in the database. Now, this has two benefits. The first one is your data doesn't have to move, and actually moving data is quite expensive. Why? Well, if you imagine data at the kind of scale and volume that enterprises have, the simple cost of moving data from one place to the next is actually quite hard. And if you think of the scale they're doing it, it doesn't even make sense to move it over the internet in some cases, because the data is just so large and the bandwidth just doesn't exist to move that kind of scale of data. And so you'll maybe have heard of something called AWS Snowball. It's literally a hard drive that's shipped to your company because it's faster to plug the hard drive into your server, copy the data across, ship it to Amazon, and then have Amazon import it into S3 for you. It's the same concept. Now, what if you don't have to do that to move the data around? What if you could just leave the data where it is and process it? And that's exactly what's going on here. There is also this other concept known as egress cost. Essentially, the cost to move data around can be more expensive if you do it using certain routes and paths rather than the route and path that's intended by the platform provider. A good example again is AWS. If you're moving data from one data center to another, absolutely fine. If you move it from one data to another via the internet, it's going to cost you a lot more because you're not using Amazon's own sort of cost-effective, let's call it tunnel or road for the data. You're using the public internet, and that obviously costs Amazon a lot more money to do. So things like that start to come into play as well.
Starting off, I know most of you in this room are doing data warehousing. Data warehousing, once upon a time, it was a market, it was an industry. There were whole companies that's all what they did.
So here's going
These
through the
days,
different
we
sort of
view
workloads,
data warehousing
which
as
makes
a
sense.
particular type of workload. And we can kind of argue about exactly what it is and what it isn't. We sort of kind of know what it is. So beyond that, we have data lakes. Now, data lakes are maybe not the same as data warehousing.
What's a data warehouse? What's a data lake? This is this is another video easily. I'm not going to get into that now because I think
Snowflake as their data lake.
Forever. To be honest, I don't think I'm 100% sure what it is.
Because it's very, very broad-based.
I won't pretend to know.
Announcements this morning, how we're even more expanding our data lake scope in terms of the type of data that we can address. But make no mistake about it, that is very much a workload that we execute on. Unistore, we talked about that last year. These are our transactional capability. This is about as different as you can get, from large-scale analytical processing. We now have to update data objects in place. It really implies a very different underlying stack. We introduced hybrid tables. Hybrid table is an object that is both transactional and analytical, right? We now have a handful of customers already in production, even though the capability.
So transactional data sources. If I give you an example, let's say you're a supermarket, when you're taking data from your point of sales, your till, as it were, you're scanning transactions and you do a purchase, the customer pays for it, everything then goes into a system, right? That is almost known as a transactional data store, and that has to be running all the time. If it doesn't run, you can't store the information that records the sales, and you'll find that whenever that kind of system goes down, everything stops, because even if you allow that to sort of let's just assume you keep going for an hour without that working, you'll just create an absolute nightmare. So it's a very different type of database and different type of workload compared to analytical processing, where you have things set up in a way that allow you to do essentially analytical tasks. The two don't work well for each other's use cases. And so what he's talking about here is, look, we can have something called a hybrid table, which can both be analytical and transactional at the same time. So again, I'm just ticking off topics we're going to cover in the future related to Snowflake, but I think it's super useful context to be aware of. And I just want to try and add some color to these examples, because I assume most people watching this maybe don't know too much about databases or Snowflake. And if you do, and I'm wrong, let me know in the comments there, but let's keep going.
Abilities themselves are still in preview. So there's tremendous demand for this, and we'll be pushing very hard, to get bigger and stronger and more functional in this area. So stay tuned for that. Very important for our ISV customers as well. And so it goes. These are all workloads are all orbiting around Data Cloud. Collaboration, data sharing.
Collaboration makes sense.
70% of our large consumers, and we define large consumers as Snowflake customers that consume them $1 million a year, are using data collaboration. On average, they have 6 to 7 of these data networking relationships. We call them edges. We have all different kinds of edges. 70% of them are using it, and it's literally growing in leaps and bounds. It's a very important part. Again, Data Cloud is defined by its networking relationships, not by any arbitrary workload perimeter, enterprise perimeter, or anything of that sort. Interestingly, cybersecurity became a workload on Snowflake. Initially, it was really an economic play, because people said, hey, I can save 75 cents on the dollar just by keeping most of that data in Snowflake instead of in a SIM. But then they figured out, cybersecurity is also a big data integration problem, right? If I'm a security analyst, it's much easier if I can query a series of IP ranges across all these different data sets. You can just imagine if you let loose one of Jensen's AI factories, on top of this data, what kind of questions you'll be able to answer. It's very exciting. Cybersecurity, we move on. Data engineering.
Yeah.
We're all data engineers here in this room. We sometimes estimate, it's very hard to know exactly, that roughly 40%.
Now, data engineering. I hate this term. Not because I don't like the activity, not because I think it's a bad thing, and not because I don't believe in it. Data engineering is absolutely something that's here to stay. It's a good activity. What I found interesting is that I think data engineering has been going on for a long time, but very recently it got branded as such, data engineering. It got this nice sexy name. Tools like DBT came up and really sort of helped amplify this branding. When in fact, in my view, it's been happening all along. It's just been happening in different places, and now it's come to the point where everything is happening at such a scale that it's become its own distinct activity. You actually have data engineer professionals who are not doing analytical work in the data visualization tools like they used to. They're not doing any data warehousing or data lake architecture. They're not doing any of the other workloads that have been talked about before. Their sole purpose is just to make sure data goes from A to B in a way that's structured, easy to use, and consistent, so that as you start to grow your business on these data platforms, you can answer more and more questions as they come up, rather than what people have been finding in the past, that as soon as a question or a business problem comes up, you have to stand up whole analytical workflows just to answer that one question. So data engineers have pretty much sort of solved that problem. But that term sounds like a new term, sounds like something really new and sexy, and it is. It's been marketed as such, but Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've completely misunderstood the origin of the term data engineering. Let me know. But yeah, it's one of these sort of I'll call it hypes in analytics and data at the moment. And I think it will become its own thing, and there'll be a new one. Something else will sort of come out of data engineering, and it'll be called something else, like metadata engineer or something like that, where you're not working with the pipelines, you're just working with the metadata, and stuff like that will come up. So yeah, let's keep going.
And of the compute that we consume in the Snowflake Data Cloud actually is data engineering function. So it is enormous. All our efforts, I wouldn't say all our efforts, a lot of our efforts in Snowpark over the last 6 months, ever since Python went GA, have been focused on really retiring legacy Spark jobs. This is the easiest pickup. If you're looking to save some money, I mean, you can save 2 to 4x on your spend on data engineering, and that is because our interpretation of Snowpark, I mean, it will run faster, cheaper, operationally simplified, and much safer in terms of governance. So we've seen enormous uptake on data engineering in Snowpark, and if you haven't looked at it, I encourage you to do it. There's just free money to be had there.
It's a great sales pitch, free money to be had.
All these plans. Oh, AI, another shot. We're going to talk about this a great deal. 70% of our large consumers in Snowflake obviously, are running these type of jobs. I mean, ML has become very mainstream over the last couple of years. We see people running models all over the place, and this is just going to go into overdrive in a huge way. That's because of all the new technology that's arriving. One of the big things we're going to talk about this morning is how we are going to enable that inside of Snowflake, because that's really important for you to know exactly how we're going to enact all of this. Applications. We've made a huge effort for Snowflake to become a place where people want to build applications. Because essentially, it's a layered cake, right? With the infrastructure, there's the public cloud, we have the live data, we have the workload enablements, we have the marketplaces, we have the transactional capability for monetization. So it's a very attractive place for software companies and software development to come, to build something, to sell something, to transact something. And we now have hundreds and hundreds of ISVs, some of them quite large actually, that are now building on Snowflake. We're really looking to set off a renaissance in software development on Snowflake. We really think that applications should be built on a data cloud, not on a database.
It's a really interesting take. I don't know. So applications are, what is an app? That's probably where this sort of debate starts. What is an application? And he's typically calling out here on stage. He's saying software developers can come and build applications on our platform. But I don't think it's just software developers. I think there are people who work in analytics who work in a simple tool as Excel, who'll go away and build really complex sort of setups in the Excel workbooks, and they will call those applications. And so I think the term application means a lot of things, and you have to be super clear about what type of applications. Are we talking about things that should be dashboards, or dashboards that should be applications? Are we talking about that sort of level of interaction where it's actually no software development required whatsoever? It's a really smart data-driven dashboard with a couple of actions that come out of that let you do various things. In the Tableau world, Tableau's tried to do this with Snowflake with Salesforce and a couple of other capabilities, and they've also introduced things like extensions to allow you to do actions out to other systems and platforms. But when we talk about applications, in my mind, it's interesting. I think Snowflake, the bigger piece to me is actually enabling your data analysts, people who are doing analytics on these platforms, to be able to write software and applications without having to worry about software development and everything else that comes with that. That's sort of the beauty of that. And there is actually a couple of companies in the world doing this. Retool is a really good example. Retool have sort of taken the approach of giving you an interface to be able to design applications and then essentially take the software development out of your hands. You still need to know a bit about your data. You still need to know a bit about what you can do, the metadata and all of that. But fundamentally, your job is not to be a software developer. Your job job is to understand the business process, and they give you an interface to build an app that solves that business problem. In my mind, I think that's a slightly better solution, and I think Snowflake could do from learning a lot from that. There is also this sort of tendency when you're working with databases to be, proper nerdy and say, oh, here are all the tools, here are all the things, but the fact of the matter is those tools in themselves are not always all accessible. They come with their own baggage, they come with their own learning curves. And so if you're trying to, go out to the data cloud, I think apps to me have to take on a new meaning. It has to be more than just, apps that software developers build. To me, it has to be apps that we see in businesses, that people are building in Excel, that people are building in Tableau, that they really shouldn't be building there, because you want all of that activity to be happening on your data so you can A, see the metadata that comes from that, B, you can potentially monetize it for specific uses and gains within an organization or publicly through collaboration and other capabilities. But at the end of the day, that's just my take on that. But it's an interesting play, and I think
why we believe that
it's easy to get lost in that play.
Now, there's lots of them out there. Some of them are built by large enterprises that are building customer-facing applications. DTCC, great example. That's actually a regulatory function in the financial services market. They're really owned by their member banks, and they manage the liquidity levels that banks have to maintain. It's very, very cool. And since so many financial institutions are on Snowflake, it's all Snowflake to Snowflake type of functionality. You see Simon Data, Bank of New York, Mellon, Okta, and it goes on and on and on. Now, I want one of them called out specifically. I was on a stage, actually here in Vegas a couple of months ago, with Blue Yonder. Blue Yonder is the former JDA. They are the largest supply chain management software company in our industry. I've always had a personal affinity with supply chain management because it's one of the last remaining areas in the enterprise that has never been platformed. And there's actually reasons why it's never been platformed. And it's very frustrating because it has been a spreadsheet email business, very, very inefficient.
All right.
And there's really an enormous opportunity for digital transformation and really bring this into the modern age. But what are the problems in supply chain management? Supply chains consist of many different entities, right? So getting visibility across the data in different entities, guess what? We need a single data universe. We can't have these silos and all these boundaries stand in the way of it. It's fundamentally a data integration problem. We can solve that with Snowflake. And the second thing about Blue Yonder is supply chain management is, when they have events happening in the supply chain, they run these incredibly compute-intensive processes very, very fast. To be able to figure out what do we do, what are our options, what are the scenarios that we can enact here. And of course, Snowflake lends itself really well, because we can fire up instantaneously these workloads, massively provision them, and get the results. So we finally have an opportunity to go after supply chain management. And of course, the network effect for retailers and consumer packaged goods companies is going to be enormous. So Blue Yonder is a $1.5 billion software company. So it's quite large for people to re-platform onto Snowflake, so we're excited about that.
Bet they are.
Now, one of the things that I remember 5 years ago in San Francisco, 2019 was my first summit.
So I'm stopping this here because it's quite evident what Snowflake is doing here in this initial part of the keynote. They are framing. This is a sales pitch. Everything going on here is a sales pitch. They start off with this network diagram, then they show you this universe with sort of planets orbiting this sort of data cloud as the sun. There's lots of good analogy use there. And then out comes governance, and that's sort of this, invisible web that goes around this whole thing to give it structure. Then will come security, then will come a bunch of other things. So this sort of opening keynote, like now that I'm sort of seeing it play out, is this opening of the keynote is actually more about framing what Snowflake is, what it can do today, and where it's heading. That's ultimately it.
Conference, I remember doing a presentation. I don't remember what I said, but I walked off the stage and somebody said, "You didn't talk about governance." And I'm like, what? I didn't know much. I was only in the job for 6 weeks at a time. And we said, yeah, we didn't talk about governance. And we should have, because governance is so central to the data cloud, right? I mean, what this visual is trying to show you is that there is a shield, there's a protective shield around everything that we're doing. And you may be like, Well, that's nice. But the problem is, when you come from an on-premise world, you have your own security perimeter.
Yeah.
When you get to the cloud, that becomes a whole different dynamic. So governance has sort of been infiltrating all our thinking. So every time we do something, we need to fully think through all the risks, that are represented by new functionality, the risk of exfiltration, the risk of, compliance violations, all these types of things. When we brought Python out, you can do that in a week if it's just Python, right? But the way we had to do it, to harden it, make it non-porous, and really eliminate all the risk, it took us 2 years to do that, to really make, Python a enterprise-grade, high trust capability. So every time we do something, this is the first step. This is also why it takes time for us to take things out of preview, because these things are in preview. Guess what? It's always security compliance type of issues that are slowing down the release of these features. So everything we've done in terms of workload enablement, it runs inside that governance perimeter. And that's really the big change from Data Cloud from before, where it's just a data universe, a big one, and something that runs across enterprise boundaries and so on. But we brought the workload platform into the governance perimeter as well. And we call that Snowpark. Snowpark is the programmability platform for Snowflake, and it is completely governed in terms of its implementation. Very important aspect of what we do. Now, the user types, historically, when you come from where we come from as database people, of course, SQL people, obviously the general population
so app developers, ML engineers.
To serve.
This really speaks to what I was just saying about the kinds of people. Like, when Snowflake's talking about app builders, I think every single one of these users has the potential of building an app, and to just only assume that only app developers can build apps is sort of an interesting thing. It's very similar to, let's take video editing, right? Like video editing used to be something that required a very specific skill to do. And then apps like TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts came out. And now virtually everyone can edit a video on their phone without any prior experience of knowing how to edit a video. And more so, you can create videos that create more engagement than someone who's made a blockbuster film, or someone who's been editing all their life in traditional tools. You can get a 30-second, 40-second video that gets far more interesting engagement. Even amateurs can pick up an iPad or an iPhone, record the video on their devices, go into iMovie and create a simple edit, put it on YouTube, and more people will see that video than, again, a award-winning film might do at the movies. And so I think you have to sort of critique the fact that, is Snowflake maybe thinking too narrow about its potential for apps? And maybe that's essentially driven how they've built the solution. Why can't a data scientist build an app? Why can't a data analyst build an app? Why can't business users build apps? And why can't you enable them to do that on your platform? That would be my question to Snowflake.
But over the last couple of years, we have massively focused on the left side of the spectrum, the much more technical user, to give them, the type of experiences, the type of interactions, that they want to have. So we really address the entire spectrum, and we view all these roles as equally prominent and important, and we will continue down that path. So we'll make 3 announcements really quickly, and then in the next section, we're going to take you 15 feet underground, show you in excruciating detail what's going on. They're very, very excited this morning to share these things with you, because some of these things have been in the works for the last year. Some have been in the works for much longer than that. So the first one is, you can probably interpret this picture, icebergs. We have talked about our support for Iceberg open table file formats for some time, but we now have greatly expanded that. There's a whole discussion here. When do I use Snowflake internal objects? When do I use Iceberg open table formats? Do I want to manage my own storage? Do I not want to? What functionality if I'm not given up? Is it a managed versus an unmanaged object? We're going to talk about that, but this is a huge step forward. We really, obviously the goal here is we want you to be able to reference
I know nothing about icebergs other than, the icebergs that live out at sea. So if you know what this is about, if you've got some prior context, let me know. This is a completely new concept to me. So I'm sitting here going, okay, please explain to me what you're talking about. It's kind of like an insider sort of feature here. Like there's been lots of discussion about, okay, yeah, tell me what it is.
Any and all data. So we're putting the infrastructure in the data cloud to make sure there are no limits to your ability to reference and address data, especially in the face of old and new developments in data science. Super important.
No limits. Icebergs.
What we're also announcing, number 2 today, is what we call our native applications framework. We've been working on this for some time. We have, by the way, when we go to our partner pavilion, all the exhibition areas, you'll be able to see these applications. These are built in our native applications framework.
Nice.
The highest level sort of analogy that I can give you for what this is sort of the Apple iPhone, their app store, the Apple iPhone apps. There is now such a thing as a Snowflake application, and we're now
comparing yourself to Apple is a bold move, but actually I think it shows and speaks to maybe the aspiration. The interesting thing about that comparison, though, is again, like, who are you catering to? And I think companies with an existing application sort of mindset will have people that can already go and do this. You see here on screen, you've got Capital One, you've got Mapbox over there on the top right. I don't know if that's Medium. There's a Carto or Capto, and all the others are a bit sort of foreign to me. But nonetheless, these are companies that have been building apps or know how to work with data platforms and build these integrations. They just have these people on staff. They can take them off one project, redeploy them somewhere else. But to everyday businesses who don't have those people, the question is still, like, why should I go and do this? And what's the benefit? What benefit is there in doing this on the platform? And again, I just still think if you just take data as a very simple sort of concept, there's just so many people building app-like behaviors into very simple things. To me, that is a bigger opportunity, far bigger than these very sort of complicated infrastructure projects, which really only serve business sort of use cases. What about serving sort of much smaller, simpler to solve problems?
Building applications as Snowflake applications. We're super excited about that because they're using all the common services, they're using all the common governance frameworks. Obviously, our database engine, which is really the centerpiece to the entire platform, that's all here. Now, if you're on the iPhone and you want to run on Android, different development environment, different deployment environments, you pretty much have to maintain separate platforms to address that. And the great thing here in cloud, you built one application that can run unmodified, completely agnostic to the underlying cloud. So if you're a software developer, you can address the entire market with a simple,
that's a good
single
use case.
implementation.
Definitely.
And we think that's incredibly cool. So these apps, there's going to be hundreds of them. If we're successful, there are going to be thousands of them. This is really a core part of our strategy. An app.
Interesting line there. If we're successful, there's going to be thousands of them. I mean, back yourself a little bit. I think that's sort of an unnecessary line. Maybe it's just Frank being honest, right? Like he strikes me as a very honest presenter. Says it how it is. But yeah, I think I'm going to definitely need to watch a session on this and to try and better understand sort of where they're going for this. And are these app developers here, or are they busy building apps for the iPhone? To carry on with the analogy, right? Like, Snowflake to me hasn't felt like a destination for app development. As a customer, when I open Snowflake and I go look at my data, nothing screams to me app development. Nothing screams to me build an app to solve your business. Nothing screams to me unload your videos and let's analyze them as unstructured data. And so, if that is the case, if this is sort of a really big thing, there's definitely a huge marketing piece to help existing customers like me and existing users of the platform know that this is a functionality, and these are the kind of people to start getting into organizations to help you achieve these goals.
Sure, not just limited to application developers, software companies. Everybody these days is a software developer. Everybody is building customer-facing applications, internal applications, and so on. And finally, we're announcing Snowpark Container Services. You just saw an app disappear in that container. This is a huge expansion of Snowpark, and we're going to show that in dramatic fashion in the next segment. When we first introduced Snowpark and we started to GA Python, a lot of people saying, yeah, this is great for a Spark job and the Hadoop jobs, and we recompile them, run them on Snowpark. But a lot of people say, wait a second, I have engines, I have applications, I don't even know how to, what to do with these things. I cannot just sort of, rewrite them and recompile them and all of that. That's why we developed containerization, right? We can take whole applications, whole sets of services, and we can now run them inside the Snowflake governance perimeter. And if you've been on at the pavilion for partners, there's quite a few of them that are already running inside a container. It's actually quite easy to do, even though this is a very, very new thing. A lot of people are already running it very, very quickly.
So the concept of a container is, I'll use a computer analogy. So let's say you have your laptop or your computer, right? And in order to install software, you have to get the software for the version of whatever you're running. So if you're Windows, you have to get the Windows installer. If you're a Mac user, you have to get a Mac user. And the concept of containering allows you to essentially take an application or a system and decouple it from the operating system. So what this essentially means is you can take, let's say, let's take Adobe Photoshop as an example, and you install Adobe Photoshop into a container. Now that container simply knows that there's an operating system called Windows, and the Windows can do a bunch of other things. When you do it that way, what you're then able to do is use your computer in a much more flexible way, because all the applications don't know other applications exist. They only really ask for the resources they need when they need them, and they sort of talk to the computer to get those resources. And those containers, those boxes, just have a simple understanding that they are sitting in a Windows environment. Now the reality is it might not be. The reality is that actually in that box, it has no clue of what's outside of that box, but that box could actually be living in another world, in another place. And so it makes these applications more portable. It makes them flexible. You can move these things around. It's a bit more like a commodity, if that makes sense. And I'm hearing myself talk, and I know that's just a bad analogy for this, but nonetheless, what they seem to have done here is taken Snowpark. Now remember, Snowpark is data engineering, applications, and AI and ML, essentially all packaged into a product called Snowpark, and they're taking that sort of capability and putting it inside of a container. And so there's a lot of benefits that come with that, but to be honest, I'm going to need to sort of see use cases and examples to better understand the value of that and why that's important. And I think you should also go and check out the session. It's coming up next in this keynote, so we'll obviously take a look at it. But I just wanted to sort of briefly sort of touch on that concept if it's new to you at all.
I mentioned Blue Yonder earlier. They have a lot of legacy engines that they still need to be made available. They can't rewrite them, right? They just want to host them inside of Snowflake, use the database engine, and just make the services available like they did before. So this really helps us swoop up any function, any application that already exists and say, hey, I want to run that in Snowflake. This is how you do it. Now, it's not a coincidence that this is also going to be the strategy. This is a large language model that's now disappearing, into the container. This is how we're going to host large language models, and we're going to show you that in the segment coming up. It's a great strategy because we don't have to port them, we don't have to hack them. They're going to go wholesale, into the container, and then they can be addressed, by the applications themselves. Very, very good way, because we are anticipating very, very rapid development in these areas, and as a result, we need to have a strategy to adopt that and make that available to the world.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So with that, the message is, of the announcement this morning. No limits. No limits means we're pushing the limits back on applications, pushing the limits back on the use of data, pushing the limits back on Snowflake. I mean, the whole strategy here is for the data cloud not to have any limitations. And you have our word for it, and we will continue to do that in any and all areas. So with that, we'll yield the stage, and we'll thank you very much. You've been a great audience. Thank you.
So that was pretty good. I really enjoyed that. It was a framing of what Snowflake is, what it can do, and where it's heading. It's as simple as that. And lots of keynotes in this space. I've just did a Tableau keynote breakdown, and in that keynote, the message was really like, this is where we've been, this is what we've done, and now this is where we're heading. And so for this feels to me like a keynote sort of intro that's presented a product that's really confident about what it's doing, where it's heading, and what it wants to take on in the future. That's not to say it's right about all of its views and standpoints, but they're at least internally confident about what they want to do with these things and how they're going to do it. And if you disagree or don't agree, then take it for what it is. You've always got choice. You can go and use a competitor. Databricks is a word that I know everyone at Snowflake will shudder when I mention it. But absolutely, all these other sort of takes on the same thing exist, and you can absolutely go and check that out. So I think that was really good. The other thing is, I think as a presentation, it was also a very good framing of how Snowflake wants you to use the platform. Sometimes brands are a little scared of this, but sometimes brands will just say, just use our platform to do whatever you want. Here, you got this problem. Yeah, just do that. Yeah, just do this. Just do this. No, here Snowflake were very deliberate. They're literally saying to you, look, yeah, bring your traditional warehouse and lake into our thing, but don't just bring it in to do that. Bring it in to do apps. Bring it in to do AI and machine learning. Bring it in to do data engineering. Bring it in to do collaboration. And by the way, we're very opinionated about how we do these things. It's kind of an extension of my previous point, but they are very sort of confident about that, and they're telling you how to use the platform. And that is in some cases actually quite rare. You've got lots of incumbent companies today that will be very scared of telling you how to use their platform because they have a vested interest and huge customers that use their platforms in hundreds of different ways. They don't want to tell any one of them that they're wrong, because as soon as that's the case, it's time to switch. So that's what I sort of took out of that. But nonetheless, I thought this was a very interesting session. It was pretty cool. Okay, here we go.
Snowflake co-founder and president of product, Benoit Dashville. Snowflake Senior Vice President and founder of Neeva, Sridhar Ramaswamy, and Snowflake Director of AI ML Engineering, Mona Atarian.
So if you're not familiar, Neeva was the company that Snowflake recently acquired. So that's what this sort of discussion's about.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here. My name is Mona Atarian. I'm Snowflake's Director of AI and Machine Learning. This year has been absolutely amazing. I feel like the world is now as excited as I've always been about.
Should be going for a pay rise next
year.
So
before we dive into all of our product announcements, we wanted to have a short conversation about our vision in this space. We believe that data cloud is the foundation that organizations need for AI. But what are we providing on top of that so that all of our customers can truly seize this opportunity? What better way to find out than to hear from our founder, Benoit, and our new SVP, Sridhar. Benoit, kick us off, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mona. Thank you. And hello, everyone. It's really great to be here at Summit. So just like you, Mona, I am very excited about this topic, and I want to talk about AI with really you all. Mm-hmm. And I'm especially thrilled to have Sridhar here with us. Sridhar, you have been with us for how long already?
Week 4.
Yeah, so you are new to Snowflake, but Sridhar is a veteran in AI and machine learning. So tell us how you got here today.
Thank you, Benoit, Mona. I'm thrilled to be here. I worked as the SVP of Ads and Commerce at Google and built the ads business there for over 15 years. We built some of the early...
So this is this is a conversation. Now, what this really is Snowflake has just acquired a company. People will be asking, what are they going to do with this company? And you've always got the headlines, but what this really feels like, and what's going on stage here, is really it's a credentialization piece, right? So Sridhar is here explaining his background. He came from Google. This is his path. that should fill the market with a bit of confidence. So don't forget that these keynotes go out to things like investors, and so they'll be in the room, they'll be watching online, they'll be sort of thinking about these discussions, they'll be writing articles and blogs about this whole thing to go out to other investors who might be looking at Snowflake. Snowflake is on the stock market as well, so it's a super important thing to do. The other thing is also contextualization. You know, you buy a company, it's very new, he's only been there for 4 weeks, so this is really the first opportunity for him to meet everyone in the Snowflake community, not just, you know, people who are customers, but also partners, a whole ecosystem of people who support Snowflake or work alongside Snowflake. So this is, again, another important opportunity to do. That's why it's come right after the CEO. Like, it can be a more important placement for anything else. That sort of hierarchy should tell you everything you need to know about how Snowflake values this acquisition. And they have the existing sort of, person who looks after AI and ML on stage. And then they've got this new vice president who's looking after this product, Neeva, that they acquired. And it feels like a partnership that's going to sort of come into play, and we should expect to see more of Sridhar in the future as well. But anyway, let's carry on.
Earliest and largest machine learning systems on the planet. More recently, I founded Neeva, the world's first AI-powered consumer search engine, which Snowflake acquired last month. Now we are all excited to be at Snowflake and to bring the power of AI and data to all of our customers.
Good stuff.
We are super excited to have you. All right, let's dive in. Benoit, what is our vision in AI?
So yes, as you know, Mona, so over the...
And again, you're asking one of the founders, what is our vision for AI? So like, that's again another really important placement. It's coming from the founder. This vision is coming from the founder. Like, you know, I'm sure they all know it. You know, I'm sure they've discussed it quite clearly internally. And so any one of these three people could probably communicate it quite effectively. But this is, you know, Benoit in the middle, flanked by his two AI, master people, and they are going to sort of help push this company into the future. And maybe this is something that Benoit himself is super passionate about. Normally there's always one person in the executive leadership team that sort of takes this thing on board or pushes these innovations because they passionately believe in them. And so it's good to kind of, you just need this sort of opportunity. This photo here in itself is quite an important piece of the whole thing.
Years we have made many investments in AI and ML. But what is really exciting about this moment is that generative AI, for the first time, is really going to democratize access to data, and that's critical. Mm-hmm. And before, for example, you had to know how to program in SQL or Python, to create data, and only few people at this level of expertise. So now, all of a sudden, so before, this expert had to program, dashboards or any other things for business users to be able to access the data. So there was always this friction. Now, all of a sudden, you don't need to know how to program in SQL or Python. Now, anyone can directly ask a question. You can talk in natural language with your data, and the generative AI layer can translate this natural language question into appropriate queries and even visualization.
I think Benoit's reaching into the future a tiny bit. So yes, this is possible. Yes, you can. They're good examples of this. What is super interesting is that all the demos you've seen on social media, all the demos you've seen companies market, those have all been the ones that have worked really, really well. And this is the social media effect. This is sort of the nature of how we communicate things. If something goes bad, you're not going to go out in the world and say, look how badly generative AI handled this particular situation. That just doesn't take off. No one's interested in it. No one's going to like or re-like and reshare it. However, when it nails it, when you do that and it goes and gets the right response and gives you visualization and it does all this stuff, that's just going to get amplified so much more, even though in real terms, there are just as many failures as there are successes. And so where I think Benoit's reaching here a bit is that, yes, the technology can do that. How far away from being able to reliably do that are we? I think we're a little bit further away. And so there's a lot that needs to happen between now and then. If you look at the adoption curve of AI, I think we're right before we're right before the peak, the first peak, and what will happen is there's a second peak that comes further down the line when things are more mature. And if you look at companies that are leading this stuff, you look at OpenAI, if you look at Google, if you look at Microsoft, in all their sessions and all the way they talk about this capability, they frame it in two very specific ways. Well, number one, they say that the version of AI and generative capabilities we have today is not ready for primetime use. They all say that unanimously. Number two, they do say that it's still valuable putting it out there because there's a lot to learn from actually putting it in front of people to find out how they're being used. So with every single thing, I think you still have to go at this from the approach that you still need a skilled person to be able to assess how well the AI is doing. And that is in itself the process of training in a really sort of long way, right? As the person is using these queries and saying, oh, this one was good, this one was bad, I've had to redo this all again, that in itself is going to make these systems better. So in the future, we might get to this world that Benoit is painting. But, if I go into Snowflake right now, yes, I could probably go to, GitHub Copilot and get it to write me some nice SQL that could do my very basic task. But as soon as I'm working in an enterprise context and I'm trying to make sure that this code is actually going to do what it's going to do, I better have the skills to be able to validate that for myself. And when I do the documentation, I better be able to get in front of someone and explain to them how it's working and be able to sort of go through all the levels of QA and any sort of issues that come up in a very sort of intelligible way. So I don't think AI is quite there yet, but we are at a keynote, we're at a conference. I get the sort of general gist of what Benoit is saying. It's like today that is now a possibility, right? That's how I think it should be framed. And it could be a language or cultural thing, but nonetheless, I think it's just important to just step back a little bit from the hype train and just make sure that we contextualize the progress that's being made correctly. And we realize that, yes, 80% of the time it's right, but 20% of the time it's very, very wrong. And you still need people who know how to critique this work to be able to figure that out.
The other aspect is Frank, just explain how, the data cloud brings all workloads to your data, giving you the security, governance, performance, and ease of use, which is, really critical. And this applies also to AI. You really want to run all your AI workloads in the data cloud. So really our vision is three things. First,
that statement is super interesting. Yes, today you do want to do that because the computing requirements and the resources required needed to be able to do those things just don't exist. You can't have a desktop that can run a large language model. But I also think this is technology we're talking about. I think in the future, there will be use cases where actually you don't want to run that capability in the cloud because you might have a private cloud that does this. You might have a specific compute resources within an organization that's actually able to do this training, largely because you might be in a regulatory framework where you can't do everything in the cloud. You might have to work in an air-gapped environment. For example, if you work in defense or security, of course you can't run this stuff in the cloud. You're going to have to run it in a much more secure framework. I think you also have to sort of take some of that with you have to critique some of this stuff because yes, of course, your iPhone does certain AI and ML operations on device, and Google will do certain AI operations on device, and it will do the rest of them in the cloud. There is always a framework for deciding what gets done where, and I don't think every workload has to be done in the cloud. Some can be done on device, some can be done maybe in partnership, so a little bit of work on device, a little bit of work in the cloud. Some might be done in this way, where the model is trained in the cloud, but once the model is small enough to fit on your device can actually run the model. A good example is transcription. When I transcribe this video, the computer then trained the model to be able to take what I'm saying just literally into the microphone and translate it into a transcript, was trained on a much more powerful computer that I'm going to use to actually run the model to generate the transcript. And by the way, it will do it faster than the video takes, if that makes sense. So an hour transcript will take 40 minutes to create when I run it. So you don't have to run everything in the cloud, but it's desirable for the reasons we explained before. If your data's there, you're not having to move it around. There's no sort of big cost in doing that, and I think that's a slightly better setup.
Users should have direct access to data through natural language. Second, you will be able to run any model inside the Snowflake Data Cloud and optionally embed these models inside data application that then can be distributed through the entire data cloud. And third, all of this will run on your data without any security or government trade-offs. So Mona, your team is really at the center of this development effort, right?
Yes, yes, we are.
It's a bit of a like an interesting dynamic there. So like founder of the company asks you, hey, so your team's on top of this, right? Right, yes, of course. Like, no, it's not going to be the answer.
There is a broad effort across many teams to make this vision a reality. From giving our customers a platform to develop and deploy models, to easily accessing models automatically built on your data from SQL, to our own LLMs that understand documents, and of course, LLM-powered products that make all of our customers more productive. There's a lot to be excited about. All right, Sridhar, you've built machine learning.
So this is also weird because I think it just needs a host, someone who's not one of these three people asking them the questions, because then I think it's sort of strange to have a question asked, someone answers, then that person asks the next person the question. It's difficult to follow, and it almost feels like this is a scripted discussion, and it is, of course, it's a scripted discussion. You ask this is the answer, this is how it goes, and it doesn't play out like a conversation, unfortunately, in my opinion, this early on anyway. But nonetheless, the talking points are still really, really important.
Learning systems at incredible scale. What about the vision that Benoit just laid out made you believe that Snowflake is the place to build the future in this space?
Absolutely. Let's double click on what Benoit said just now and what Jensen also talked about yesterday, which is language models as the new human-computer interface. Remember that for the past 50 years, we've had to live by rules that computers and programmers set for us. If you entered a number in the wrong format, well, that's your problem. All of a sudden, we can interact with computers, with applications in natural language and actually have them understand what we're saying. This is a huge unlock. But there's a big but.
Before we go into the but, nailed it. 100%. All this technology is just an interface. To me, a lot of people put this stuff as, this is going to get rid of my job. No. This is just a new interface you're going to work with to get your job done, and it will allow you to do more and do it more effectively. It needs to be paired with a bunch of other innovations at the same time. AI and large language models on their own aren't going to be the answer. There's going to need to be other sort of contextual technologies that need to come online at the same time, but those technologies are being built. Trust me, now that AI is out in the open, companies are scrambling to get those solutions. Snowflake today, coming out with all these capabilities. Now these platforms need a place to run, a place to work, and so everyone, including Snowflake, is sort of pushing to make those available.
Language models by themselves do not understand what is real, what is authoritative, what is believable, what is real time. You need to combine them with the power of retrieval, with the power of search to set the right context. And this is what we did at Neeva to launch an AI-powered search engine. It's really the combination. Now, of course, Snowflake is the trusted platform that is safe, secure, efficient for data and applications. It's the combination of these that's going to be the magic unlock for all of us. So whether it's much better catalog search, or an assistant that can help you write SQL faster, or an assistant that you can just talk to and get insights about your data, your customers, you can expect a lot from us. We're very excited.
And that is an interesting thing. Like you've got this capability of Neeva with applications, but actually there's probably a lot of work that Neeva have done to that Snowflake can take just to make its own interface a little bit work a little bit better. Can maybe surface relationships between different databases, different tables, different columns, all of that metadata sitting inside of Snowflake. There's probably a lot that Neeva could probably add in terms of their understanding of AI to that technology. And so I always think when a company gets acquired, the obvious innovation is obviously, table stakes, but to me, there's also other hidden benefits, like things that company's already good at that you can port to your company to do new things.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Sridhar. And indeed, you should expect a lot from us. And we have already built a lot, and you are going to be really, really amazed by what Christian is going to walk you through. and especially my favorite parts of summits, the summit keynotes, which are live demos, and you are going to see many of them.
Let's do it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Benoit, Sridhar. Thank you, everybody.
That was a really interesting section. Really short. It's clear that the acquisition's so young that they've got nothing to show just yet. The integration is happening. The work is going on behind the scenes. Next year at Summit, you'll probably see stuff coming out. And because of the way, I think you heard Frank say this, stuff has to go into preview and so on and so forth. So it might be maybe a year or two before we really see the innovation coming from Neeva. But nonetheless, that was a good way of just showcasing, look, here's what we're going to work on. Here's what's going to happen. I think it could have been shorter, but nonetheless, I think it was important to see these three people on stage talking about their vision for AI and where they want things to go. Cool. Change of stage.
Please welcome Snowflake Senior Vice President of Product, Christian Kleinerman.
Cool.
Good morning. Good morning, Snowflake Summit. Good morning. God.
You needed the
So
energy.
awesome to see you all here. Thank you for being here with us today.
It's amazing.
And I can assure you, all of us at Snowflake are committed to giving you an amazing experience at the conference. Hopefully, all of you go back to your organizations excited and inspired about what is possible with our new innovations.
Good.
You heard from Frank the broad framing of the data cloud. You just heard from Sridhar, Benoit, and Mona about AI and how we're thinking about it. And now we're ready to go one level deeper on actual innovations, actual new launches.
Now, I'm going to say something controversial here. As a Tableau, someone who's been using Tableau for a while, this would have been the dream keynote for Tableau, right? Here's what the platform is, here's where we're heading, and now here's the really good stuff. Here's the features for the analysts, features for the core audience. And I'm kind of jealous. I'm sitting here with envy because it's Tableau made it pretty abundantly clear they're focusing on the user base they've not historically focused on before. And in order to do that, they have to make some sacrifices. That's not to say that data analysts of today aren't going to get features for use in desktop and in authoring. It's just to say the focus of the company is heading in a different way. And so what I get the sense of, this is only my first summit, but what I get the sense of from this, at least structure of this keynote, is that if you went to this keynote as someone who's been using Snowflake for a while, I think this structure absolutely speaks to you, and it speaks to sort of what you're trying to achieve. So I think it's a really, really nice sort of framing.
You want to see some demos? Yeah. Not really? How many demos? How many you want? 10. You're crazy. Yeah, we will have some announcements and demos, and we love showcasing the actual technology.
That's good.
So with no further ado, let's get into it.
Absolutely.
Today's announcements, we've included 3 different chapters on the talk. First one is around single platform. Second one is around distributed, deploying, and monetizing applications. And the last one is how do we help you program data, get value out of your data without trade-off. So with that, let's get started on the single platform.
Single platform.
And if you have been with us for a long time, in the very beginning, our founders,
I think that diagram was actually a diagram for the single platform.
they created internal tables.
Here they are on stage together.
Where you ingest data into Snowflake, and you are able to get value out of it. But over the years, many of you gave us feedback, and you said, I want to be able to interact with data that is in external storage. Here at Snowflake Summit, 5 years ago, we introduced external tables. Later on, we introduced external tables for Iceberg tables. And last year, we introduced Iceberg tables. And many of you tried it, loved it, but you also said, I want sometimes to have Snowflake control the reads and writes and the transactional consistency of the tables. Sometimes I do not want that. And today, there are trade-offs in performance. If it's an external table, you don't get the best performance. If it's an Iceberg table, you do. So today we have an exciting announcement for all of you, which is we do not like to make you have these trade-offs. So we're announcing unified iceberg tables as a single mode to interact with external data.
Interesting.
And the good news is it's going to have two modes. One of it is in an unmanaged mode, where coordination of changes and writes happens by a different system, your choice. You can have a managed mode where we take control of the data and we coordinate writes. But the most important thing is we do not want to give you any trade-offs in terms of performance.
Interesting.
And what you see here, first blue bar, it's an unmanaged table. I'll let you figure out who wrote those Parquet files. They're not very optimized, but it's still more than 2 times faster than external tables. And if you use managed tables where Snowflake is doing the writes, the performance is on par with internal writing.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm not hearing applause in the crowd. So it's one of these things where I can't tell if that is because people don't understand it, or if it's just the crowd, right? Like sometimes you get a tough crowd and it's good, but they're not like the kind of people that go woo, all that jazz. So I have no idea how to read the room and the reaction. I also have no idea how to read that sort of announcement, to be brutally honest. I don't think I understand enough about it to be like, oh my word, this is going to be amazing. So I think I want to sort of see a demo, see the benefit. But it's interesting they have a managed and an unmanaged setup. I think whenever a company does that, that really shows you they understand their customer audience, because it's very easy for a company just to say, oh, we're always going to manage it for you, this is how it works, come along with the journey. And Tableau Cloud is a bit like that, actually. Tableau Cloud is like, this is the way it's working, this is how you're going to do it, this is you get what you get, right? And it feels like Snowflake has, I think maybe because it's slightly smaller than Tableau in terms of like customer base, it has to bring customers with them. So new features have to have this sort of world where there's no trade-offs for them to really get any sort of adoption. So interesting to see that.
Of our platform. We added support 2 years ago. And one of the things that we heard very consistently from many of you is, how do I more easily get value out of my unstructured data? Mm-hmm. And Frank already alluded to, before any of us were talking about LLMs, I assume you heard about LLMs? Yeah, me too. Before they were in vogue, we acquired Applica. And what we're very, very excited to announce today is the private preview of Document AI, which what it lets you do is ask questions in natural language from documents that you have stored in Snowflake. And most important, I don't know that anyone has operationalized an end-to-end pipeline where you can give feedback to the answers you're getting from the AI and be able to fine-tune and retrain the model.
Okay.
What you'll see is the opportunity to take fields and structure out of documents, and then you can put in a table, use it for another pipeline, use it for AI, for ML, anything else you want. The model that powers this is a text and image model, and we want to show you how cool this works.
Yeah.
So with this, we're going to jump into the first demo of the morning.
Let's have a look. I'm not going to go wild until I've seen it.
I want to first introduce. So Dash, he's like our demo master. Come here, show us.
Wearing snow glasses.
Look
you might as well be wearing an Apple Vision Pro.
When I tell you that we are committed, this is commitment. Look at the shoes. And now I want to introduce Polita Palos, engineering leader at Snowflake, and she's going to do a demo for us. Polita, welcome.
Merch insert.
Thanks, Christian, and
Cool.
Good morning. At Snowflake, we believe it should be really easy to use AI to get more out of your data.
Right.
And so that's why I am really excited to be with you here today to talk to you about how Snowflake is using large language models to put your unstructured data to work. Let's check it out with a demo. For this demo, Dash and I, Dash, you're looking great, are going to play the role of a data engineer at Ski Gear Co., a company that produces ski goggles. We want to make sure that we're able to manufacture those goggles on time with our expected volumes. But recently, we've been having some problems with our injection molding machine. Let's check it out.
Interesting.
To understand these issues, I'm going to use Snowflake to analyze inspection forms.
Oh,
and we're going to be able to see a full history of problems.
Exactly what I said earlier on. This is a typical business today. Inspection management happening in a form, manually signed, maybe typed up, and then signed off, and the text is written. Now, if this company has gone through a digital transformation, they might go over to iPads, they might go over to a whole bunch of different things of putting this stuff in. But in earnest, there's still always going to be parts of a company that work in this way, because that is just the fastest way to work. If you think about it, the way factories are set up, any small change can, throw a whole production lines askew. So this is an interesting innovation, because what I think we're about to see in the demo, and I'll shut up in a second, we'll actually watch it, is that it's essentially saying to you, look, if you have this workflow, if you have this information in a document, we're going to be able to pull it out. So what I think they're about to show us is they're going to be able to pull out this pertinent information about this inspection from this document, which has been scanned in, and we're going to be able to query it with Snowflake using a standardized interface. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. Let's have a look.
To the injection molder, when they occurred, and why. To start with, I've created a project called Machine Inspections and uploaded about a year of our PDF inspection documents. This is built directly into the native Snowflake UI. And I can upload some more if I need to, but I think I've got enough to get started. So these documents contain a mix of fields and free text, and analyzing them is either going to be error-prone and time-consuming, or it's going to require ML expertise, which I don't have. But with Snowflake's new document AI, currently in preview, I can do this with no ML expertise required. By default, Snowflake's document AI uses a zero-shot model, which just means I can get good results without having to fine-tune or train the model. But if I need to, I can always fine-tune it to improve my results.
Okay.
So on the right, you can see a preview of one of the documents that I've uploaded.
Face to the left, yeah.
To start extracting information, I can just type questions in plain English. So you can see I've already created a few of them, like when did the inspection happen, who performed the inspection, and you can notice here that Document AI is actually reading that signature.
It's reading the signature.
And what was the inspection grade? Let's add one more question. I'd like to know what part was defective. And when I ask this question, Snowflake's Document AI is going to do an analysis of this document and give me back an answer along with a confidence score.
That's very
In this case,
good.
it told me that the injection molder has the problem.
Wowzers.
Okay, let's flip through a few more of these documents, Dash, to see how it's performing.
Unit, but yeah, okay.
What you see right here in real time is
what they did there is you're kind of training it on the left, and then as you switch through documents, it's like you're going through different rows in a database. So each row is a record, and each record is essentially just a document. And in this particular table, you can see this is a pass. Everything is good. But what is great here is you're building a question. It's taking a question, it's understanding what you want to get. It's then analyzing this document, reading through all the text, passing out the information that thinks it needs to pass, finding what it thinks you're talking about, extracting that information using optical character recognition, and then giving you an answer, and then on top of that, giving you a confidence score saying, hey, look, I think this is, I'm 75% sure this is what it is. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty powerful. I mean, like I've seen tools try and do this and fail epically. I'd love to see this on a Now, this document is quite structured. I'd love to see this on like a handwriting only document, right? Like maybe you've taken notes from a meeting, and is it able to, scrape the same information out of something like that? Does it fall over if you don't have like a neat structure like this form does? It'd be really interesting to see all those details. But of course, it's in preview for a reason. So yeah, let's keep going.
Snowflake analyzing this document with its large language model. And we got an answer, the mold clamping unit. But this is interesting because you can see that the inspection actually passed with no issues found. So this is no problem. We're just going to update this and tell it none. And what this does is it provides feedback to Snowflake about how we're going to fine-tune the model. And now I can click Start Training and publish the model to my account. And in the interest of time, I've already published this to my account. And now that it's in my account, I can actually share this with other teams that can use my fine-tuned model as well. And then, with a simple SQL query, I can run this new model on all of my inspection documents in one go. So now we've got...
For those of you who are not exactly SQL experts, essentially it's basically specifying which database to use, which schema, essentially which part of the database. It's creating a table, and then it's putting some information from the model into that table. That's what the first sort of 9 lines are doing. And then from line 11 onwards, we're selecting specific columns from that model, and those columns are the ones that we just saw. So the inspection date, inspection grade, inspector's name, and the defective parts. It's essentially selecting those columns out of the data set. And then here, you're basically saying from model result is going to be, if I get my annotator out, so model results is essentially this table that was created up here. And that's essentially it. And it's ordering it by inspection date. So basically deciding the order. And then you get a table at the bottom. And then you've got the responses, the prediction as a JSON. So it's almost storing it as semi-structured data. So this is quite interesting, quite powerful. I really like this, actually. It's really intuitive, actually. It doesn't feel like broken. I mean, SQL is far from intuitive, but for a new feature, someone who has to work with SQL would immediately know how to utilize this. So it's pretty good.
Got some results. And we can see that every 3 months, the injection molding machine has failed inspection. So this is really interesting. I can share this insight with my quality engineering team, and they can use this to run maintenance every 2 to 3 months. So we can stop of time. I've already published.
I just want to go back a second. What I don't see here is, when you get a table like this, it's very easy to jump to the conclusion that this is final data. This is like data, but because it's a prediction, I think the bit that I'd love to see more of is like you can see the score, the confidence score essentially, and how confident it is. I would love to see some sort of aggregate confidence across this whole data set. So how many false positive, how many false negatives, how many, all of these things that are going on, like what is the makeup of that? And as people report these issues over time, obviously this model will change in the future. So if I base my analysis on this, and then a week further down the line, Emily's gone in and looked at the data and said, actually, no, this one did pass. And it's just, it's the AI model's read it wrong. And I'm basing a report off this particular table. I'm hoping to get a sort of expectation that this has changed, maybe some alerting, all of that good stuff that comes after this particular journey, I think is super important. So the insight is good, but then there's always that little element of polish on top of that, just to make it something that I can do once and forget, and know that it's going to tell me if it finds a particular issue, especially when these things are constantly changing.
Molding machine has failed inspection. So this is really interesting. I can share this insight with my quality engineering team, and they can use this to run maintenance every 2 to 3 months. So we can stop failing these inspections. And other data engineers, analysts, and developers at the company can use my model directly as well.
Good.
So that's really cool.
Very good. I like it.
And now I want to be able to use this to process new document inspections as they come in. Well, this is really easy because it's fully integrated into the Snowflake platform.
Graph.
So I can create a pipeline using streams and tasks to process these new documents. And every time a new document comes in, it will run. And I've actually set up an alert to send me an email anytime a new document fails.
Okay.
So we can even use Document AI on text-heavy documents like warranties and contracts. And we can see here that the injection molding machine's warranty says that this part is actually good until November 2023.
This is crazy.
So we might actually get some money back. To recap what we just did, we analyzed PDF documents using Snowflake's first-party large language model. And then we were able to extract information with regular English questions and a few clicks, rather than writing code. And then I was able to fine-tune the model to improve my results. And then I could publish that model for anybody in my organization to use. And then I created a pipeline using streams and tasks to process new documents as they come in and send me an email when something fails.
That's pretty good.
Join me for the What's New Document AI and Unstructured Data with Snowflake session to learn more. Thank you, Dash. Christian, back to you.
That's
Thank
pretty
you,
cool.
Paulina.
I love that. That was really nice. It's a simple problem, simple solution.
Is it cool?
Very cool.
Yeah. From the early days of Snowflake, governance was a priority. And you saw it from Frank. Governance is a big reason to have data inside of Snowflake. Security was where our founders started on day one. But over the last few years, we've been investing heavily on privacy, which is another aspect of governance.
So we talked about this actually in a separate
Not
video.
only because there's a lot of regulation around privacy, but in this age of AI and Gen AI, you feed some PII to one of these models, and God help you when that PI is going to show up, who knows in which context. And from that perspective, we want to give you the most comprehensive platform to secure and protect your data, all the way from classification of the data, what is sensitive, what is quasi-sensitive, masking of the data. We have ability to do private data products, private machine learning, and of course, be able to audit the entire process. And we have 3 exciting announcements for you today. First one, we're introducing in prior preview what we call query constraints, which is a policy that you can set on a data set and say, what types of queries are allowed to run? Maybe I don't want some columns to be selectable, which is a projection constraint, or maybe I don't want some columns to be queried without an aggregate. Very exciting. We're also introducing and integrating into Snowflake differential privacy.
Wow, that's pretty
cool.
cool.
So you can introduce noise and track a privacy budget, again, to protect re-identification of sensitive data.
Yeah,
Integration will start with Python.
The first time I heard of
we'll...
differential privacy was Apple when they were talking about the way their keyboard learns. Now, this failed epically because the problem, what would happen is that you get a word that would briefly enter sort of everyone's vocabulary, and it would make it through the differential privacy system, and then it would become an autocorrect, and this autocorrect could only really get fixed with a software update, essentially someone actually manually taking it out and fixing it. So the way it works is essentially, let's say you're collecting data, so you collect data from 100 people. What you then do is you add a bit of noise to that, so you can't tell which 100 people created those data points. And then when you're then analyzing this, you've not really changed the makeup of the data, but you've removed the ability to trace who exactly said something or who exactly provided a data point. That's like a broad brush example of how it works. And so the ability to do this here is actually quite nice because the way this would work is you don't want it changing the source data. It's kind of has to be a layer on top of your data when specific people are actually accessing it or querying it, who don't maybe have the right levels or right roles to be able to sort of work with that data in that way. So that's a nice touch.
We'll do it into the core SQL engine. And last but not least, we continue to invest in our clean room capability, not only making the platform better, there is some UI, and we're working with amazing partners to deliver industry-leading privacy multi-party computation. Now I'm going to shift to the core of the engine.
Right.
And to do so, to share some of our innovations, I want to invite one of our founding engineers, Alison Lee. Please join me in welcoming Alison. Alison.
It's great to see you all. It's great to see all the excitement for Snowflake. One of the things that I love about being an engineer at Snowflake is how focused we are on making our customers' lives easier. This has been true from day one, and it's a key reason why Snowflake is a single product with one core engine. So whether you're using SQL or Snowpark, it's all powered by the same engine. So every enhancement that we make is applied across the board. Of course, this makes it critical that the engineering team focuses on the most high-impact areas of development. And this is why we have a data-driven approach to engineering. Since Snowflake is a single product, we can easily analyze how Snowflake is being used and figure out the best things that we can work on for you guys without you having to tell us what we should be focused on. And then once our engineering team makes an improvement.
That is actually a pretty important point. A lot of products, let's say take Oracle, you take any of these solutions, they're actually a family of products, each with their own code bases, each with their own use cases. Because Snowflake lives in the cloud, it's one code base, everyone's using the same version, everyone's getting the same benefit. And because you have that critical mass of people, you get better telemetry out of the platform, and therefore you're actually able to focus your efforts and energy on things that people are actually using versus things that you think they should be using. But also you learn from quirks, you learn from, customers who are at the bleeding edge. They will surface new challenges. Snowflakes will fix those challenges, and then people who come later down the line don't even experience those challenges because someone else has already sort of set the trail, as it were, to borrow a phrase from Salesforce, and kind of put people in the right direction. So I think it's a very important point, easy to skip through in the keynote, but I think it's actually a very important sort of thing to call out.
It just shows up. There's no need to enable a new feature or tweak some parameter to get the best out of Snowflake. We want it to feel like magic to you and just work. Simple as that. Of course, our performance work is never done. And this data-driven approach to engineering works particularly well for performance work. We're constantly looking at your experience with performance in Snowflake and figuring out how we can improve it and assessing the resulting impact. I'll be talking more about how we're assessing the impact a little bit later, but first I wanted to tell you more about some of the new advanced analytic capabilities that we've been working on for all of you. Since you last heard from me, we're continuing to expand Snowflake's robust support for geospatial data.
That's pretty good.
As part of that, geometry support is now generally available.
Nice.
This means you can ingest any type of spatial vector object into
Snowflake. This looks like London, but it's not.
And do your analysis on it, whether you're operating on a spherical or flat surface. Additionally, now in public preview, you can easily switch between different spatial systems. For instance, if you're switching between a state-level system and a global system. And now generally available, we support.
So, like that, to break that down, geometries are types of spatial objects essentially, and regional versus global systems. What they're talking about is sometimes when you work in geospatial analysis, you can have what are known as localized versions of mapping, if that makes sense. So a global system, for example, the one that everyone's mostly familiar with is latitude and longitude, right? There's basically a bunch of coordinates around the world. Now, if you live in the UK, you might have something different called eastings and northings, which is a different sort of grid-based system here in the UK. If you go to America, different systems sort of pop up depending on how that works. And so you do need a central understanding of all of these systems to be able to map them on top of each other. They all kind of have to be translated in order to work together, because sometimes you get data from one place and data from another place, and they're working with different systems. So being able to support those systems in one context is super important.
Support use cases like intersecting coordinates and shapes and invalid shapes. But when you take all of these things together, it means that it's much easier to migrate your spatial data into Snowflake, whatever that data looks like. Another area that we're focused on is giving you the ability to work with ML models directly from SQL. Now in public preview, we have a set of ML-powered functions that allow you to build more reliable time series forecasts,
That's pretty nice.
quickly identify what's contributing to a change in a metric, and detect anomalies and trigger alerts. And the coolest part of all of this is that you can do that without any machine learning expertise. In addition to expanding our advanced analytic use cases, the team's been hard at work on something which, for me as an engineer, is the most exciting thing. And that's making Snowflake faster for all of you.
This is a lot of
We
stuff
deliver
here.
performance-related enhancements with nearly every release. You might not be familiar with all of these on screen, and you shouldn't have to be. That's part of the simplicity of Snowflake. A lot of these are pretty geeky. But each of these had an impact on the customer's performance experience. However, it can be challenging to understand the overall performance impact when you take all of these things together. And this is why we've developed the Snowflake Performance Index, or SPI. This allows us to assess the impact of all of the great performance enhancements that we make across the entire year. Since we first started tracking the index back last August through the end of April, so that's about 8 months, we found that query duration for stable workloads in Snowflake has improved by 15%. By stable, I mean recurring workloads that are consistent and can be compared over time. But what's most important is that this is all based on actual customer usage. So this is based on your workloads.
Right.
Some of you are probably familiar with industry benchmarks, such as TPCDS. These are commonly used to analyze performance for certain types of use cases. And they definitely have their uses. We use them as part of our development process. But when it comes to assessing the impact of the work that we've done and asking the question, have we made our customers' lives easier, these benchmarks aren't tied to any actual customer usage, and so they really don't cut it. And this is why we've developed the Snowflake Performance Index. Because what's most interesting to me and our engineering team is analyzing how you, our customers, are using Snowflake in the real world and making your workloads and your queries faster. So I've talked a bunch about performance and query duration, but don't forget that when performance improves in Snowflake, that's closely tied to cost. And that means that when we make performance optimizations in the system, your costs can go down. It's free money, as Frank would say.
Frank
All
says
right,
that a
well,
lot,
with that in
apparently.
mind, I'm going to hand it back to Christian, and he's going to talk a bit about the work that we've been doing to help you with cost predictability and control.
So that was a tough section because it's one of the thankless things that goes on. You don't get a gold star for doing it, and when you make it work, things go faster. Most of the time, it goes under the radar. You don't even see it. So you have to be really paying attention to notice some of these performance improvements. And because Snowflake maps quite closely to cost, the more time you're spending doing something, probably the higher cost, the more money you're spending with Snowflake. And so what is interesting is I'm not too afraid with the sort of community on this one, but I think there's probably an opportunity where it's possible to see the impact of performance improvements from release to release just by comparing workloads that broadly haven't changed between releases. So if you're seeing a workload that was taking X amount of time and then after an update it takes this amount of time, but between those two nothing has changed, you haven't changed your warehousing, you haven't changed the setup of how your query runs, maybe the exact same number of rows are coming through it, there you may be able to see some more subtle changes, but it's not really something you can demo nicely. Is what are you going to do? Show someone a query running faster? And we're talking about milliseconds, but those milliseconds add up if you think about the scale that Snowflake's operating. So it's a super tough gig, I always say, when you talk about performance improvements. You get this in consulting as well. Then you don't really see them. You just experience them, and sometimes even that experience doesn't really sort of aggregate up to this like wow moment, if that makes sense.
Thanks.
Thank you. Lots of enhancements, and we work very hard to make it transparent for all of you, so things get better without effort. If you look back at the old days, planning for an upgrade That was crazy talk in this day and age. Alison rightly said that we are focused very much on helping you govern and manage your spend on Snowflake. None of us at Snowflake want you to overspend. We want you to be aligned with the value you get from how you're consuming resources in Snowflake. And the framework by which we enable this, we want to give you visibility into how resources are being consumed. We want to give you control and policies to manage that resource utilization. And we want to give you optimizations. And Alison just covered many of those. But in reverse order, let's talk about control. And today I'm very, very excited to announce that the core budgeting capability is now going into public preview,
nice.
Which will let you specify for a subset of resources of your choosing a budget that you want to track against, and not only get an alert when you've exceeded the budget, because that's sometimes or oftentimes too late, but also be able to know when you're on track to exceed that threshold.
Nice.
So this is in public preview now. And in the topic of visibility, I think there's only one item that we've heard very, very consistent feedback from you, and it is the ability to have a warehouse utilization metric.
Nice.
What this lets you do is specify how utilized is a warehouse, a cluster in a given point in time, which will help you optimize. I hear questions from you all the time. Should I have a larger warehouse? Should I have a smaller one? Can I consolidate? This is the building block that lets you see all of this.
Okay.
Very exciting.
Nice.
You just heard many new capabilities and enhancements that we've done in the core platform. But for us, the real reward, the real benefit is when we hear from our customers getting that value from the innovations that we do. And we want to invite one of our partners and customers onto the stage. Please join me in welcoming Mihir Shah. He is from Fidelity Investments, and you're going to hear from him a little bit more. Mihir, welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to skip this bit because whenever I've had this experience in the past with other conferences, but in essence, whenever a customer comes on stage, they agree to this setup here with Snowflake, but they don't necessarily agree to being critiqued by people like me. So having learnt my lesson, having got a slap on the wrist in the past, I'm going to skip this section and go to the bit after this. So I'm just going to fast forward past this. If you want to watch this, go watch the keynote. I won't really be commenting on this. Okay, so this section is just about to finish, and we're going to carry on now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Mihir. That warms our hearts to see the impact that we can have in an organization tearing down silos and consolidating data. So this is the end of chapter 1. I can move to part 2 of our conversation
Chapter
today.
2, wow.
And it's all about how do we deploy, distribute, and monetize data products.
Nice.
Can be a data set, can be a native app, as you heard. And the face of all of this is our Snowflake marketplace. And the momentum that we have is amazing, and we continue to innovate. Lots of launches, and you'll hear more throughout the conference, the ability to have public listings and private listings, the ability to automatically fulfill products across regions and across clouds that's going generally available at the conference. But at the end of the day, what really makes a marketplace like this interesting is the content itself. And we have some exciting news to share with you today. And to do that, I'm going to invoke the help of AI in person. And by AI, of course, I mean Alex Isidorczyk. Alex, welcome to the stage.
Okay, so founder CyberSyn. I think I'm going to have to skip this as well. Am I going to have to skip this?
You know I'm going to start calling you AI all the time.
I was born for this.
So You are well known to some people, but I don't think everyone here knows you. Can you give us a little bit more about your background?
Absolutely. And first, let me just say that I'm thrilled to be here. The energy is absolutely palpable. I spent the first 6.5 years of my career and the last 6.5 years of my career at a hedge fund called Co2, focused on using external data to make real-time predictions about the economy. What is inflation doing? What is consumer spending? Right. And so on. And now I've started a new company with Snowflake's help called Cybersyn, which is a data as a service company that's native to Snowflake and provides content for the marketplace.
That's super cool. Why Snowflake? You made a choice. Why?
It's a great question. Besides just you and your charming personality.
I mean, if you're looking at this and you're wondering, what's going on here? Like, this company that's basically only working on the Snowflake platform and selling data in the marketplace. And this diagram sums it up. Yes, they are scraping or getting data from these various sources. They are putting a little bit of magic sauce in the middle. They are processing it. They're probably doing data science. They're probably doing a whole bunch of workloads in Snowflake itself, or maybe outside of Snowflake as well. And then they are sort of packaging that data and selling it on the marketplace. So you and I can go and purchase that data as context for our own business models, our own bit of analysis. And of course, because you're doing everything in this single platform, it's a fairly seamless experience to be able to use their data inside of your platform. And the pricing and everything is all managed by the marketplace. So I think this is a nice sort of summary diagram to show you what's going on.
There's two reasons. At the big level, we have a shared mission. Cybersyn's mission is to make the world's economic data available and usable, to make it mobilize the world's data. Right. That aligns with Snowflake's main mission as well. And I would point you back to Frank and Jensen's note, to thinking back about the most important table in your organization that lives in Snowflake. Well, what about using everybody else's most important table too? That's Snowflake data sharing, and that's what Cybersyn is helping to enable by providing this content on the marketplace.
Right.
At the tactical level, Snowflake gives us the distribution. It lets us connect to all of you and lets all of you access our content in one click.
That's awesome. So where are you? Is this just like a good idea, or do you have customers or any customer stories?
We're rolling.
It wouldn't be a good idea.
So far, we've released a series of public domain data sets, gaps in the Snowflake marketplace, where we've provided original content to fill those gaps. Things like inflation data, population data, so on. We've had more than 500 Snowflake accounts, Snowflake customers sign up. And some organizations, I'll call out Blackstone as an example, have used some of our data sets, such as our SEC feed data or inflation data, for their own data science use cases.
Nice.
I'll point out, these sophisticated organizations, it's not as if they cannot get this data on their own. They can. But with the power of Snowflake data sharing, we save you that ETL work, and I'll allow you to sort of focus on the downstream value add.
Exactly.
But I'll say,
summarize it pretty well.
I think that's not true of all your data. They can just get it. I think you're leveraging Snowflake Summit to announce some new data products.
Exactly. As Frank said yesterday, not everything can be free. So we are launching 2 proprietary products. We call these products foundations, because there's something you can build on. And the key word is product. They're not just data sets, they're data sets and native applications in the form of Streamlit. We're launching a consumer spending data set and an e-commerce data set that we think will be useful to retail CPG and financial services clients.
So this is huge. Oh my word. I mean, I don't want to sort of over egg this in terms of like excitement. What essentially they're doing is they're launching proprietary data sets and applications in Snowpark. So they're not just saying, here's the data. They're also saying, here are a couple of other things you can plug onto this data set alongside of your own that give you a capability. And they're targeted at, in this case, specific industries. So retail, fast-moving consumer goods. Why? Because, of course, it makes sense to start there because these are going to be the industries that probably have the biggest propensity to spend on this data. So they have some general data that's already free. I think they talked about inflation and population. That's sort of table stakes. Think of that as a marketing play. You get to start to use this data. You learn how they work. You get a sort of interaction with the company. They reach out to you. They talk to you more. They understand what you can do. But in the background, they're building a much bigger suite of paid products, and this feels nice. It feels like a good use case for how they're working with the Snowflake, and actually it's a really good play into this concept that like Snowflake has sort of transcended and it's become a platform, right? That's exactly what platforms do. They create a place where people can start to do business on top of what they're already doing, and Snowflake can just fade into the background as the place where that canvas sort of happens.
It's awesome. And the question that I think all of you may be thinking of, and I'll ask on behalf of everyone here, where else can I find your CyberStream products?
Nowhere. We're exclusive to Snowflake.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh,
So
crap.
you have a booth at the conference. You and your team are here.
I wonder if that's
You're
like
gonna have a session if you want to learn more
if
about
that's like a
CyberStream.
paid thing. If Snowflake is
Find
saying, hey,
him,
you're doing
learn,
great
he has
stuff, how
amazing
much do we
data
pay
sets.
you
Alex,
to
thanks for
stay
being here.
exclusive to
Thank you.
Snowflake? Or maybe it's just that it's really hard to do. Maybe the CyberSyn have just decided, hey, this is actually really hard to do.
As Frank alluded to in his opening remarks, the marketplace is not just data. Last year, we shared a broader vision for a marketplace for native apps. And today, we're very excited that the native app framework is going in public preview. And in the last few months that we've been only in private preview, the momentum and the excitement is through the roof. You see some of the logos. Everything you see here is an app that is actually published already in the marketplace from more than 25 providers, over 40 apps. And I was chatting with our marketplace ops team. I think there's another 80 or 90 in the queue ready to get approved. So there's a lot of momentum. Some of the names here, like Bloomberg and others, it's completely amazing. So we're very excited about the progress. In the last couple of years, we've been on a mission to simplify monetizing data products. And everything we did originally was around usage-based business models. Billing by number of queries, billing based on time. And of course, all of you and many of our partners are so excited that you came up with 50 different business models, and we cannot just implement each one of them.
Let me check.
And today I'm completely excited to share the introduction of what we call custom event billing, which is that for any app or any data product, you will be able to bill in whatever the right units are for your business.
If you carry the Apple analogy, this is like giving the user the option between a one-time purchase of an app, a subscription to an app, or like a recurring subscription, if that makes sense. So like a usage only means you pay as you use. That doesn't actually exist on the App Store. Maybe it kind of does with apps that are made by Apple, for example, because as long as you're buying an iPhone, you're getting access to apps like iMessage and so on and so forth. So you kind of, but not really. Base monthly is monthly subscription. One time is just a one-time payment. And you've also got these events, which is kind of nice. So you can actually target specific kinds of events upon which you build your business on. So it's really good.
You want to do a one-time bill per time, per user, whatever you want, usage-based or not, we will simplify the billing of whatever your model is. The other thing that we hear in the concept of billing, more on the other side, on the purchasing side, the way I hear the question, or some of you express it, is, I want to buy data or apps with Snowflake credits. And we quickly say, well, I don't think that's what you mean, because Snowflake credits is sort of like a unit of compute. But we got you. We do understand what you mean. And we are also very excited to announce the introduction of the ability to buy from our marketplace by drawing down from capacity commitments to Snowflake.
Interesting.
This is now generally available for all of our customers in the US, and will continue to expand later on. And what you can do is, if you've made a capacity commitment to Snowflake, you're going to be able to deduct some for apps, some for data sets, and of course, your traditional consumption of resources. So are we ready for another demo?
Interesting.
You want to see native apps?
Capacity commitment. I'm trying to understand what that actually means. I think at the moment what it means is that when I look at myself as a customer, I pay every month for what I use. And I think what they're saying here is instead of doing that, I can buy a commitment up front. And let's say I can say to Snowflake, I'm going to buy 1 million credits up front, and I pay for that now. That's kind of useful because it can protect you from things like inflation and all the other stuff. So you buy it at today's price. It's great if you've got a spare budget going and you kind of want to, buy ahead of time, or maybe you've spun up a data engineering project or you've spun up a data science project, and what you'd like to do is to buy a commitment to capacity so that they can draw down from that capacity, and essentially when it gets to zero, you have a natural point at which you decide whether it's actually profitable or not. So it's also a really nice sort of piece of flexibility for companies to try things out actually, and know that the commitment is capped, rather than the current setup where you can kind of say yes, we'll get it, and then all it takes is for one person to do something really large on the data set, and actually you've gone over. So it's really nice. Let's see a demo.
I'll say our engineering teams did not all come here, and many of them are watching on the live cast, and they want to hear you. Are you excited about that demo?
Yes. I'm glad you said that, because I've been saying it earlier on in the session. This is a tough crowd. Like, come on, guys. Some of this stuff should be exciting you. Oh, God.
Thank you, Christian. We are super excited to bring the native applications framework to developers around the world with the public preview launch in AWS. Today, I'm going to show you how you can build your apps with Snowflake's highly reliable and global multi-cloud infrastructure, how you can build your businesses with Snowflake's global marketplace and flexible monetization models, and how you can deploy your apps close to the customer data while retaining full control over your intellectual property. Let's see all of this in action by building an app that predicts lead times for manufacturing orders. Dash,
interesting.
Are you ready? All right. We want you to bring your favorite developer tools and best practices to Snowflake. I personally love VS Code. So we are going to write our application with Snowflake's VS Code extension.
This is quite nice. I need to try this, actually.
As you can
I made
see
a
in this
video
project,
about using
I have multiple Python files for
Snowflake and VS Code before this extension
Snowpark
existed,
code.
but now it's possible. It's
All I
pretty
need
nice.
now is a manifest file for the app config and the setup script that installs the application in the consumer account. Now we're ready to package these code files that I've already uploaded to my Snowflake account. Let's head over to Snowside and create an application package, which is an independent and self-contained unit of code and data that you can share with your customers without exposing your intellectual property. Before committing our code changes and creating the first version, we should test our application. With Native Apps Framework, it's super easy to do. All you need to do is to install the application package that we just created in the same account. Once the installation is done, an application instance is created. While this app is installing, Dash already has one ready to go. This is what our application built with Snowpark and Streamlit looks like. I think it looks amazing. Dash, what do you think? Let's commit our code changes by creating the first version.
So earlier on, I think in a separate in the previous video when I was talking about apps and applications, I said what is an application, and it's super interesting because if I just go here and he says, look, what do you think of this? Well, this to me doesn't look like an app. It looks like a dashboard, right? And again, it's just as a lay person who doesn't know how to code anything, is just sitting here drooling at some of these features and looking at this, and you go, well, what makes this an application? Like, how is this dashboard to me, or how are these 4 charts any different to a dashboard? And for the record, these are not these are not groundbreaking charts either. Like, I'm not seeing any sort of interactivity. I'm not seeing the ability to kick off anything else. Maybe we're about to see that, but why is this an app and not just a dashboard? And if I've misunderstood this entirely, let me know.
Ash, what do you think? Let's commit our code changes by creating the first version. With versioning built into the framework,
You can incrementally release new features or bug fixes alike. You can target releases to your customers and confidently and safely deploy changes. While this version is created, I want to show you something super important. Today, as application builders, you have to spend a significant amount of time and money getting your apps ready for security compliance. Snowflake automatically reviews every single version of publicly shared apps for security threats and abuse. We believe that this is going to accelerate the sales cycle for you and time to value for your application customers. As you can see in this example, this version was submitted twice. It failed the first time because of a security issue, which was then corrected, and now we have an application that's ready to go. Let's publish our application on the Snowflake Marketplace. And for that,
so there's a small thing. Like if the first time it passed and it failed, so that's two things. Why in the second security scan is it not two things passed? I don't know. To me, that's a pretty straightforward bit of communication issue in the interface. But yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
We're going to head over to the Provider Studio, where we already have a listing for the application. You can monetize your applications right here in the data cloud without having to set up or manage complex billing infrastructure. Snowflake gives you a range of flexible monetization models to choose from. As you can see in this example, we are creating a completely custom billing model where we can charge the customer per lead time prediction. And we'll also include a 30-day trial. Now we are ready to publish our application.
Why 30? Why not 20 or
That's
10
it.
or 7?
In just a few simple steps, we've published our application to Snowflake Marketplace, where more than 8,000 customers can instantly discover your applications. Let's look at what the customer experience for using and discovering these applications looks like. For that, we're going to head over to the Snowflake Marketplace.
Yeah, I want to see what
As Christian mentioned,
sees. To me,
we have more than
still don't
30
understand what an
applications
app is.
live on Snowflake Marketplace today. If you are in AWS, you can start using these applications now. Now I'm going to show you something very exciting. This is Snowflake Marketplace powered by conversational search using large language models behind the scenes.
There you go. Neeva
Let's see if there are any
contributes
products to reduce the supply chain risk. The search returned not only data sets, but also the applications including the one that we just created. Let's click on the application listing. As you can see, the security-related requirements of the application are called out clearly so that the customer of this application knows the security posture of this application even before it is installed in the account.
That's good that it's first.
I can see that there is free trial, I understand the pricing model, and I can pay for it using my existing Snowflake capacity commitment.
There you go. That's
now
we
are ready to install and use this application.
Right.
But to save time, Dash already has one ready to go.
Something that just crossed my mind is, Snowflake only makes money when you're using the platform. So I'm just thinking back to all the features they've announced, and it makes sense that because that's the setup, they're really incentivized to come up with ideas they genuinely think you're going to use, because if they don't do that, then they don't get paid. So I think it's a healthy dynamic to actually have in a tool, because it means their focus and energy goes into things that are gaining traction. It's as simple as that. There's so many things in technology where you pay for a capability you just don't use. Let's take like your phone, right? You have these 3 lenses on your phone, but how many people use all 3 lenses when they take a photo? Do they even know how to switch between them? They probably don't, but so many smartphones now come with multiple cameras, and you'll find like 95% of your phone is taken with just one lens. What if you, instead of adding that 3rd lens or 2nd lens, you just made that one lens even better so it could do more? That might be a better way of using it. And so I think with these features, we're kind of seeing that play out actually. And there's a real focus on making sure that, like, if you're going to put an app and you wanted to eat some consumption, well, we better make it easy for you to talk to the customer and tell them what you need to tell them quickly. And I think a lot of companies forget that kind of stuff. They kind of launch the feature, then worry about that stuff after the fact. So it's kind of nice to see.
Seems like this application is requesting access to some data in the consumer account. Let's grant the application the data it needs. With Snowflake Native Applications Framework, I can bring apps like this close to my data without leaving Snowflake, without sharing any of my data with anyone else.
Interesting.
As
So what is an
application
app?
providers, you can be completely rest assured that your intellectual property is secure from your customers. While this application is crunching some serious data, I'd like to recap our demo. First, we built an application with Streamlit, Snowpark, and with the tools that developers love. Then we built a completely custom billing model and monetized and distributed our application through Snowflake Marketplace. And then we saw how the customers are going to bring their apps close to the data from Snowflake and run it against their data within minutes. If you are developers, start building your applications today. If you are in AWS, check out the applications that are live on the Snowflake Marketplace. If you'd like to learn more, join us for the What's New session. Thank you, Dash, and back to you, Christian.
Show us the app. Oh, didn't show us the app. Didn't show me the app. I think people in the audience saw it.
Okay, this brings us to chapter number 3, where we're going to help all of you get more value out of your data, program your data without compromises on what type of programmability you can do, or security or privacy. And to start that, we hear lots of questions on, oh, do you understand developers? Do you have enough?
What is that? I saw that. Let's just go back a bit. Let's just... Look, are people leaving the keynote with like, what, 20 minutes to go?
Without compromises on what type of programmability you can...
Yeah, like, what's this going on here? Like, come on. I always think that's so rude. Like, we're not even like, you know, it's not obviously the end. Maybe the last 30 seconds are like, you know, just very brief. And actually, I'm watching this online, and most of that is just credits. And these people will have to go to the next session and prep. Maybe they're presenting, who knows. But if that's the case, make it easy for people to leave, because when you're watching it online and you see people leaving, it's like a football match when fans start leaving early. You kind of get the wrong impression. But anyway.
Can do.
Yeah, it's quite a few people.
Security or privacy. And to start that, we hear lots of questions on, oh, do you understand developers? Do you have enough tools for developers? And we have a long list of announcements. I'm going to tease quickly 4 out of them. Throughout the conference, there's more. Tomorrow, there's a Builder keynote. In no particular order, we're committed to deliver a native Python and REST API for all core operations in Snowflake. You'll see here at the conference the beginning of preview for scheduling tasks and doing DAG operations, all natively from Python. Enhancement number 1. Number 2, we're excited to announce the introduction of a new Snowflake CLI, completely open source tool focused on developer-centric use cases. You'll see a number of demos and instances where we can use it. Very cool for those of you that prefer CLI programming models. We're introducing brand new logging and tracing APIs, both of them in public preview as of today in the conference. And you'll be able to log data and get into a common event table within an account, so you can debug store procedures or functions, or do whatever you need to do to understand how your code and your application is performing. And of course, you can hook it up with alerts. And last but not least, we're very, very excited to announce an automatic synchronization with Git repositories, where code will be synced between a branch that you choose and a stage in Snowflake, so you can maintain code in sync from within Snowflake.
Proper dev features.
All right.
I feel like quality of life improvements that devs have been asking for ages, and we got a round of applause.
The secure hosting of the Python
that tells you about the
Java
audience. I think that in itself
libraries
says everything you need to know about the audience.
Data. And you heard it earlier. Snowpark only went generally available in November of last year, and with just 6 months or so, the adoption and the excitement is through the roof. More than 30% of our customers have used it on a weekly basis. Thank you. And we run over 10 million queries for Snowpark every single day. And of course, we continue to innovate on Snowpark all the time. We have a number of exciting announcements for you. Granular control of packages. You can decide allowed list and blocked list of packages within your account. Maybe you separate development from production. support for the newer runtimes, and I'll let you read the rest of the list. The innovation in Snowpark does not stop. And for us, one of the most exciting pieces out of Snowpark is not what we build technology, but what our customers do with it. We have a video for you to hear from our customers. Please roll the video.
With our use of Snowpark at PowerSchool, we see several benefits. It allows us to bring new solutions to market much more quickly. As we build new AI/ML models and we test those,
let me jump ahead here.
With Snowflake, so you can 10 minutes for the new product. We have
several
video for you, but what our customers do with it. We have a video for you to hear from our customers. Please roll the video.
I'm going to skip ahead this bit. I'm not going to watch this bit, so hold on.
With our use.
There we go.
Thank you to all of you that have adopted Snowpark, as Frank said, started saving money, and more important, getting great solutions, great applications, great use cases. The other part of programming data is the ability to have pipelines, and in particular, streaming pipelines. And we've shared our direction in last year's Summit Keynote, and today we're very excited about the milestones that we're hitting on these. In particular, for Snowpipe streaming, we started the process to roll out a generally available so we can be able to land data in Snowflake with very low latency. And once you have data in Snowflake, what you want to be able to do is transform that data. And we are very excited today to announce the public preview of Dynamic Table so you can declaratively go and transform data regardless of the type of query that is needed for that transformation. And the best way to understand this is with a demo. So please welcome Saras Novak into the stage. Saras.
Of course. This might be the last one, actually.
Hello, everyone. So as you all heard, it's important to track when these injection molders in the factory are down because it causes our ski goggle output to drop off significantly. So let's build a continuous data pipeline that collects streaming sensor data from these injection molders and analyzes against maintenance data. This is in real time that our quality engineers can use these new insights to make sure our uptime and throughput is improving all the time. So to start off, let's use Snowflake's Kafka connector, which uses Snowpipe streaming, generally available soon, to ingest the sensor data from these injection molders. Streaming data is ingested as rows directly into a table.
So I think Kafka, is it Apache Kafka? Am I making this up? I think it is. So Kafka actually started in a weird place. LinkedIn Learning, or LinkedIn, I think, developed Kafka and then gave it to Apache, made it sort of open source, and then now Snowflake is using it inside of Snowflake.
Table in Snowflake without having to land it in a separate object store first. Sensor data is started streaming into Snowflake. Let's switch over to Snowsight to see the row count going up. Great. Next, we're going to use dynamic tables, which are now in public preview, to create a pipeline to process and transform this data to get us a clear picture of machine maintenance over time. Since dynamic tables are declarative, you simply define the output of the transformation as a SQL query, and you set the target for data freshness as 1 minute in this example, all using SQL. This particular dynamic table is calculating the latest number of outages of each machine using a window function, and the quality engineer assigned to maintain it by continuously joining the streaming sensor data with the maintenance logs. Let's run a manual refresh.
So for Tableau users, this is like a relationship with a window aggregation, like being dynamically done, but at the database rather than the visualization layer. That's basically a quick explainer. If you don't use Tableau, I don't know how to quickly and easily explain it to you, but this is probably worth a separate video. So yeah, we can get back to it.
To populate this dynamic table. This will tell us which machine is the best candidate for replacement and which tech to talk to. The refresh is now completed, so we can query the dynamic table to see the results. Seems like machine 3 seems to go down most often.
And again, this is super handy because this is coming out of documents. Like, it's easy to forget this because they're doing like separate demos, but like this is coming from that PDF, like whatever scraping amazing capability they showed earlier. So to be able to have and stand up these what feel like professional workloads and genuine problems you might actually ask in a business context for lots of different use cases. The factory one is the simplest one to kind of show people on stage, and they've got the whole analogy, the guy with the ski goggles, everything. But I just think it's a really, you just, like, sometimes in features and developments, the simple things don't work. And here I think it feels like the feature's so simple, even I get it, and even I think I know how this would work if I set it up. It's really as they are showing it. Obviously, there's more complex aspects to this. We'll want to watch the sessions later. But I really like this sort of narrative and this feature that they've built on top of that sort of use case.
Next, we'll create a second dynamic table that reads from the first and joins against machine location information. This will tell us which factory line has the most outages and it requires better maintenance schedules. Looks like factory line 73 has the most effective maintenance techniques, and it should be the model for other factory lines to improve their maintenance schedules.
The thing I said before earlier around, like, this is literally relationships in Tableau with an LOD and a window calc doing like the window average across factories. Like if I was writing this query in Tableau, this would basically be like fixed at the factory line machine level. No, fix the factory line, give me the average count of machines down, but you could also, be a little bit more complex and say, do that by, first of all, you create these snapshots over time, and then you're basically doing like a moving calculation that kind of does that. Then you bundle this on top of that. So it's essentially something you can dynamically write in Tableau. The key thing here is you're doing it in the database. You're doing it easily in here, and it's actually quite a hard thing to do. And of course, Tableau is always writing the SQL anyway to allow you to do this. But having tables that do this automatically based on real-time data is a completely different ballgame, and it does free up different parts of sort of different people's workflows to be able to use a centrally sort of governed version of this data, rather than people having these weird calculations living inside a Tableau but not available anywhere else in the business for people to use.
And increasing our overall throughput. With that, my pipeline's ready. 3 things to note here. The results of my pipeline will be automatically and continuously refreshed as new data arrives.
Exactly.
Because the data is materialized, it is always
and you wouldn't leave it
query.
live to do this.
Second, with built-in incremental refresh support, my pipeline will only process data that has changed, helping keep my costs low. And third, I don't need to handle any complex pipeline orchestration or manage any dependencies. It just works.
Yes.
Since these streaming pipelines are now critical for our business, observability is key.
Yeah.
We can track and monitor dynamic tables in Snowsight and quickly diagnose and resolve any issues. We can look at the refresh history for any dynamic table to see the current data freshness metrics over the last 24 hours and the status of each refresh and the data processed. We can switch over to the Graph tab to view the graph to see the dependencies and use that to troubleshoot any pipeline issues and make it super easy.
It's like a lineage graph.
Now let's
from
say
DBT.
we want to track all of factory efficiencies. I could write the queries to do this myself, but what if I didn't have to? So instead of writing SQL, we'll use Snowflake's new text-to-code capabilities currently in development. I want to create a dynamic table to show me the efficiency of our machine output with respect to energy consumption. I can simply...
I'm going to take a screenshot of this for another reason. I'll explain it later.
use a comment in a worksheet in Snowsight to ask the question. And Snowflake will use large language models or LLMs to automatically generate the dynamic table SQL for me. And just like that,
that's pretty cool.
The code capabilities, it delivers the DDL for a dynamic table that will answer my question, all without me having to write any SQL.
Now, this has already been possible with things like GitHub Copilot and all of that stuff. It just feels like they've just brought that capability in. Again, what I always wonder is, like, what if it gets it wrong? Or does it never get it wrong? And if it doesn't get it wrong, then why are we still writing SQL? You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of an interesting paradox there. The other thing is, again, with the documents, we saw this sort of point about confidence. I'd love to see the same thing here. And like an interesting approach I've always thought about is, look, if this SQL query does answer the question, is it able to play through the question and see if it works, right? Like, so it's one thing giving me the SQL to answer the question. Well, now take my question and play through it and show me the results and then prove to me that you've done the right thing. And that way I think it's easier to follow and critique and see what's wrong. But at the end of the day, it's just presenting you the SQL. You still have to hit run. It's kind of like, it's not doing it for you. You are just getting the SQL. You're going to have to edit this if it doesn't work. And again, you'll have to tweak it to kind of work exactly how you want.
In this demo, we first ingested streaming data using Snowflake's Kafka connector using Snowpipe streaming. We then use SQL and dynamic tables to continuously join that streaming data with maintenance logs, with results refreshed as soon as new data streamed in. Third, we showcased our full observability of these pipelines on Snowsight. And finally, we used Snowflake's new LLM-powered conversational experience to create dynamic tables without having to write any SQL.
That's pretty good.
If you want to learn more about Snowpipe streaming and dynamic tables, please join us at the What's New session for streaming in Snowflake. Thanks, Dash. And with that, back to you, Christian.
Thank you, Sarah. And an LLM that does dynamic tables. That's cool. Now let's talk about AI and ML, because we've not talked enough about AI and ML. By the way, a lot of what you've seen so far is applied AI and ML, but also we're committed to being a platform for all of you as a customer or as a partner to be able to build solutions, and we want to support the entire life cycle, whether it's feature engineering, training, scoring, measurement. We want to support it all. And we have more exciting announcements for you today, specifically around feature engineering and feature training.
I'm going to pause this a second. I think something's about to fail on my computer, so let me just save this recording.
We heard we want simpler libraries, simpler programming models. The same thing that we did with the data frame API for Snowflake. The have announcing in public preview 2 new libraries. One is around pre-processing, so you can do one-hot encoding and data preparation at scale with the same engine that you heard Allison talk about. And number 2, the ability to do training with distributed algorithms inside Snowflake with some of the most common algorithms, things that you would find on scikit-learn or XGBoost. But also, we've heard feedback from all of you. I got a model. What do I do with my model? And we're very excited to announce the introduction of the Snowpark Model Registry, where you're going to be able to store models, of course, be able to publish them, discover them, and probably most important, deploy them, whether it's in a number of runtime environments, but we'll make it easy for you to manage the end-to-end lifecycle.
Interesting.
Cool? Yeah.
Tough crowd. Tough crowd. I hear your pain. I hear your pain.
How many of you have trained models that never go into production because it's too hard to put in front of your users? And this is where Streamlit has been shining for years now. The types of experiences that show up in Streamlit's Community Cloud are amazing. And it's the fastest way to productionize a model.
I'm just going to keep asking this question until someone explains to me more clearly what an app is.
Also does not stop.
Or maybe dashboards have been
We're
apps
very
all
excited to announce the availability of editable data frames. So now you can do both input and presentation of data in Streamlit apps. A beautiful column configuration where you can specify, do you want a trend line, a chart, a checkbox? How do you present data on an editable data frame? And we're also working on LangChain integration, so you can now be able to see or show the thoughts and steps of LLM agents.
Interesting.
Exciting. But the one that I'm most excited about is the introduction of a brand new Streamlit chat component. The team raced against the clock to make it available to all of you today. And I don't know if any of you have seen, but conversational AIs are coming, conversational experiences and AI apps are coming. And if you're reinventing the wheel, building a chat interface, check out Streamlit's new component. There's a brand new wheel working very well for you, open source for you to build amazing experiences.
Yeah, tough crowd.
We have more than 6,000 LLM-powered Streamlit apps in the community cloud, which is, it's amazing. It is the fastest way to go and show amazing results to your organization. So I would encourage all of you to go try it. But also last year we teased, it was just like an early demo. How am I going to host a Streamlit app securely inside Snowflake so I don't have to do a separate hosting? And we're very, very close to public preview. What you're going to be able to do is create an app, a Streamlit app, and host it, and have that be made available to your business users, dramatically shrinking the time to productization of your AI and ML efforts. And the public preview, as I mentioned, is starting very soon. And even with the prior preview, we've seen over 2,000 Streamlit apps being created and published inside of Snowflake. This is quite amazing.
That's pretty good.
When we did Snowpark, we said Java and Python, and we should be good. And boy, did we learn about different programming languages in the world. What about hosting Rust and Kotlin and C++ showed up? Actually, there's lots of interesting apps in C++. I want to host that inside Snowflake. And what we wanted to do is accelerate time to value. We wanted to be able to support more runtimes, more languages, more libraries.
Interesting.
And the fastest way to do it was with the introduction of Snowpark Container Services.
Interesting. So we heard about this earlier on. I feel like people get it more now. I don't know what's happened in the last hour that I've missed.
This is now in private preview, and what it lets us
maybe
is
they've Googled it
host
and there's been a press release.
Docker container securely inside the governance perimeter that Frank spoke about. With Snowpark Container Services, you'll be able to export jobs. So imagine a procedure you can run, or a function that you can call from your SQL statements or Snowpark applications, or for the first time ever, you're going to be able to have long-running service inside Snowflake. The other thing that all of you said when we talked about containers is, I'm going to need more instance flexibility. And as part of Snowpark Container Services, we have a much broader list of what type of hardware you can run, how much memory you can use, etc. And of course, in this day and age, there was a very specific type of instance that was needed to be supported, and that is the support for GPUs.
NVIDIA. Back to the beginning.
Yes. You want to see container services? Okay, Jeff Holland, product lead for this effort, coming into the stage.
Thank you so much, Christian. I am so excited to be here with you all today. We're going to show some incredible things with you now here. So as we're building these ski goggles, any machine failures can be very costly and disruptive. So I'm going to use Snowpark Container Services, now in private preview, to train a model to help us predict and prevent those type of machine failures. Now with Snowpark Container Services, I can easily run any code or any container entirely in my Snowflake account. But I can also run third-party containers as part of a Snowflake native app that I install from the marketplace. So let me show you what I mean. When I build models, I love to use notebooks. And Snowflake partners like Hex have some beautiful notebook experiences. But for me to use some of my Snowflake data and have it go to any third party often requires I have to go through a number of different approvals. But not anymore. With Snowpark Container Services as part of a Snowflake native app, I can now run full multi-container apps like Hex entirely in my Snowflake account. There is no additional infrastructure that I have to manage, and all of my data and processing stay entirely within Snowflake's secure and governed boundaries.
So Hex.
So Dash here has installed Hex from the Snowflake.
Like it feels like, so this is inside of Snowflake's, but I'm wondering if this is an NVIDIA sort of protocol or application or interface, or if it's like a standard that's used in the space. So not just NVIDIA, but let's say AMD could build a graphics card that uses Hex or something like that. So, or if it's an AI standard actually for working with this kind of data. Who knows? I'll have to find out. If you know, let me know in the comments.
Marketplace. Now this might look just like the Hex you know and love, because it is, but check out the URL up here, Dash. This entire experience is being hosted from my Snowflake account. Incredible. Now, for fun, why don't we go ahead and ask Hex Magic, which is Hex's LLM-powered assistant, where it's running. And you can see even Hex knows how awesome it is that it can run and be powered by Snowpark. Okay, so we've got the experience. Let's now get our data ready for training. I'm going to use Snowpark Python data frames to create a set of rolling window aggregations on temperature for these.
So this is a notebook, and notebooks kind of work in this. Think of it as like paragraphs in a sentence, paragraphs in a book. So you kind of start from the top, you bring in your data, you import the tool you need, you set up different sort of, let's call them frames, and you're slowly building up your use case. And it looks like a notebook. It looks like it's a documented page, but actually, once you've finished, the only thing that's actually going to run is the bits in between, but you're able just to see sort of the progress as you go through along. So yeah, it's really nice.
So you can see here, Dash has a cell that's going to give us aggregates for week, month, and year. Now, once I've run the Snowpark code, I'm going to join that with the historic features and data that Sarah's just streamed in the previous demo. And with both of these steps, my table is now ready for training. Now, with Snowpark Container Services, I can speed up the training of this XGBoost model with the integrated NVIDIA AI platform. That includes NVIDIA GPUs and secure end-to-end software as part of NVIDIA AI Enterprise.
Nice.
So we can go ahead here and choose to select the data science libraries included with NVIDIA Rapids and NVIDIA AI Enterprise. And I'm going to do this training on GPUs. Now, for the sake of time, we did run this training a few moments ago, but you can see here, we were able to train a 50 million record data set in only 17 minutes with the power of the integrated NVIDIA AI platform. So similar tests took 10 times longer without NVIDIA acceleration. And all of that speed boost actually results in a 2x cost savings. So minimal changes for me as a developer, and I get this massive boost in productivity. So we've got our model. I want to take it to production, but I need to make sure it's secure, governed, discoverable, and observable. And with the new Snowpark model registry in private preview, I can do all of this in a scalable way. So here's the Python code that we can run to now register this machine learning model into the Snowpark model registry. It has all of the necessary metadata, so now any team in my organization can go and find this model, pull it in, and do inferencing on our data to make sure we're predicting and preventing those machine failures. So let's recap some of the awesome tech we just saw. With Snowpark Container Services, I can easily deploy and run full applications like Hex entirely in my Snowflake account. I use Snowpark Python data frames to query and process the data. I was able to speed up model training 10x with the integrated NVIDIA AI platform. And finally, we deployed this model to a central registry for secure and scalable MLOps.
You'll notice I've been really quiet this whole section because I frankly don't know what's going on. This is it's one of those things where you either know and understand the stuff intimately and you're getting wired off this, or you're just clueless and you're like me, just staring and you're hearing all these things, but frankly they're just going over the top of your head because it's just very specific domain. And I guess someone could sit and explain each and every one of these concepts to me, but it's just not something that I think I'm going to have to worry about in the future, and so therefore I don't pay attention to it. And I think that's also, again, a marketing challenge for Snowflake. Like, how do you tell people about the amazing capability of your platform? Well, you got to use a Keynote to do that. That's where investors and everyone is looking. So of course you're going to have sections that not everyone gets, but at the same time, I think it's important that as a data analyst or someone who, I'm a customer, so I don't think I'm ever going to get to the scale where I can deploy one of these NVIDIA models on my own data set. It's going to be slightly overkill. But how do you let people know about something that, for them today might be super boring, but in the future might be super valuable? It's a kind of a classic challenge for product marketing.
So if you want to learn more about some of these exciting announcements, be sure to check out our sessions, What's New, Snowpark Container Services, and What's New, Snowpark MLOps during the week.
Yeah, that's
Thank
probably
you so
worth
much,
a deep
Christian.
dive.
Back to you.
It's pretty cool, right? Jeff is going to hang out because whatever I say, he makes it look awesome. And this is how I want to make all of this come together from what you heard from Frank and Jensen yesterday today, which is now, hopefully with the different pieces you've heard about this morning, you understand how we're aiming to be the platform for AI applications, the platform for assistants, platform for copilots. And we have all the different elements. Most important element is data. You have your data in a secure platform. And we want to help you be able to do inference as well as fine-tuning of these large language models with safety, security, and privacy in mind. We will support some of our own models. You saw Document AI. We'll support a number of partner models. And we'll let you bring your own model, open source or otherwise. And you can create beautiful, amazing experiences with Streamlit. That's the broad vision. And hopefully you will be excited about what's possible. Today, we're incredibly excited about the partnership with NVIDIA. Again, Frank and Jensen, that was a treat for all of us. And it is not just what you saw from Jeff a minute ago. It's also some of the language models that NVIDIA has. And most important, we will use Snowpark Container Services to integrate the NeMo LLM Gen AI framework that helps you do training and fine-tuning and p-tuning of models, again, with your data and the safety and privacy of the Snowflake context. We're also very excited about announcing partnerships with AI21 Labs as well as Reka, industry leaders in having language models. And that's what I said. If I say partnership, that doesn't sound that cool, but Jeff is going to make it look awesome. Jeff, take it away.
Ready, Dash? Ready for one more? All right, you guys ready for a little bit more?
I thought it was winding down.
Yes? All right. This is big. So for the last piece of our ski goggle company that we want to do is around quality control.
Last demo, then.
Now, this is actually a really difficult problem. We have a number of different product lines that we build. They can have a variety of different product issues. We actually want to build an experience that can be interactive with the quality supervisor. So we need a super powerful model to do this. So we're going to use a large language model, or LLM. Using the Snowflake native app framework and Snowpark Container Services, accelerated by the NVIDIA AI platform, third parties like Reka can now package their leading LLMs into a Snowflake native app. This lets me install it in my Snowflake account. It's secure for both of us. For Reka, their model, weights, and all of their proprietary IP is never exposed to me as the consumer. At the same time, for me, all of my Snowflake data that I use to interact with the LLM or even for fine-tuning is never visible or exposed back to Reka. All of the data and processing stays entirely in my Snowflake account.
That's pretty
It's a win-win for both of us. So all I have to do is in the Snowflake marketplace, go ahead and install this native app from Reka.
That's a good workflow.
So you can see
I
Dash
think the
is
marketplace
installing
is
this
a really
now.
good workflow
It's
for lots of
spinning
use
up
cases.
that
I think it was
entire LLM app
a stroke of
in my
genius because
Snowflake
it
account.
turns out to be the
Now
kind of
this app
underlying
comes
thing that
bundled with a
allows them to
Streamlit
bring together
interface
these
that I can use
ideas
to
and
interact with
things,
the
and they
model.
can kind of build in
You can see
structures
here
to
there's
make
an
everything
image.
work. So
Reka's
it looks
model
really
is
good.
multimodal, so it works with both text and images. So I've given this app secure access to my Snowflake stage that has images from our production line. Now, to help with this, we're going to interact with the model running now. We're going to do it without any fine-tuning. Let's just see how far we get without any fine-tuning. So we'll start by just asking an easy question. What is this an image of? You can see it's your time back. Hey, these are ski goggles. Actually, a trick question. I noticed a few of you here thought those were a virtual reality headset. You're forgiven. You're forgiven. The LLM got it right.
At the beginning.
But let's try something a little bit more advanced. Can it give us any quality issues with these goggles? And you'll see it's identified. There's a few scratches on the lens. But now let's ask something very specific. Let's ask us to give it the model ID or number for this product. And you can see it responds back. It doesn't have that information. It makes sense. That's our own internal nomenclature that we use for our products and our product lines. But with the power of Snowflake, I can fine-tune this model securely with my data and make it even smarter. So Dash, let's switch to the fine-tuned version of this model. We'll go ahead and ask one of those questions again. Let's ask if it finds any quality issues with the image. And here it's even a little bit more specific, a few scratches in multiple locations. But now let's ask that more specific information. Can it give us more details about this specific goggle?
Oh, wow.
Okay, this is amazing right here. That is our model ID. That is from my Snowflake data that I was able to integrate with this LLM from the marketplace entirely in my Snowflake account. This info is just what I need as a quality supervisor. I can now follow up on this item and take any necessary steps to make sure our ski goggles stay great. So to recap, I was able to install an entire LLM-powered application directly from the Snowflake marketplace and run it in my Snowflake account next to my data without compromising any security or governance of that data. The application was built entirely with Snowflake. Reka's third-party LLM was hosted using the NVIDIA accelerated Snowpark container services. We have a Streamlit interface that we can use to interact with the model, and the entire thing is packaged as a Snowflake native app. So if you want to learn more about using
That's
LLMs
a good
in your organization,
piecing together of the whole
be
entire
sure
thing,
to check
actually.
out
It's
the
a good
session,
pipeline, good way of
Unleashing
visualizing the
Power of
pipeline
Large Language Models
through an
with
example.
Snowflake.
I'm not
Thank
sure
you,
the example
everyone.
makes
Back
sense
to you,
to me,
Christian.
though. Like, why would I go here to do this? Surely I just do this in Slack or in Teams, right? Like, I wouldn't go to Snowflake to do this analysis.
It's quite exciting, right? Yeah. What's possible is now orders of magnitude bigger than what used to be possible before.
True.
You saw a lot of AI, ML. We can extend database capabilities. We can build applications, host applications, languages, GPUs, orchestration. And this came together, the private preview, a few weeks ago, maybe 5-6 weeks ago, not long. And we said, you know what? If any of our partners or customers is able to take the preview and build a real use case, not a demo, but like a real thing that we can go make available to our customers, we wanted to show it to you in the keynote. We thought it was a very small amount of time, so it was unclear if it was going to happen. And we ended up in a little bit of a problem. More than one partner showed up with an amazing solution. So we were chatting internally, and we said, maybe we're going to show one, maybe we show two. Then we said, maybe if we show 2 demos, we can show 3. And you know how that line of thinking goes. At some point, the production company was like, when I called someone earlier, like crazy for talking about 10 demos, like, yeah. We had a similar reaction internally, externally on trying to show too many demos to you. But we are so excited about what is possible with Snowpark Container Services that we have a few more demos for you. In particular, we have 10 more demos for you. Live, there's no recording, so we need the demo gods to be really kind to us. So far, they behaved. And are you excited and ready to see 10 applications of Snowpark Container Services?
It's funny because earlier on he made a joke about 10 demos and goes, "Oh God, what are you doing? Don't be things." So that was a little bit of foreshadowing. Good bit of stagecraft and showmanship there. Calling out 10 as a ridiculous number, giving us 6, then giving us 10 more at the end of it. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's see these demos.
So let's do it.
This is like a face-off.
Demo number 1. All of you familiar with Airflow? We have Astronomer, the company behind the managed Airflow service, and you're seeing Airflow orchestration happening in Snowflake.
What is this hype track? Like, I love it.
Alteryx, company well known for analytics automation platform. And what you're seeing here is advanced analytics workflow all pushed inside of Snowflake. SAS, company that needs no introduction, enterprise analytics for a
These
long
are not
time.
demos. These are like
and
hot
what you're
takes.
seeing here is the ability to publish and deploy scoring of models, again, inside Snowflake.
This is hype track. I hope this is royalty-free because
Did I
otherwise I'm
cool
going to
many
get
of your
pinged.
customers? Company known as the Everyday AI Company. And here you see deployment of models to be able to do inference at large scale. Hex, amazing notebook. You saw it earlier in the demo. The entire UI, the whole product is running inside Snowflake securely. Your data doesn't come out. Support for SQL, for support for Python in Snowflake.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It kind of really shows
NVIDIA,
how much
you know
of the
now that we're
platform they've
great
actually
partners
built,
with
right?
NVIDIA.
These are
and
not
here you see
small
some of the
companies that they're showing
Neeva
running
LLM models
inside
and
of their
framework
platforms.
running
That's
inside
like a
of Snowflake
huge
again,
feat
with
of
a streamlit
accomplishment.
UI. Did any of you order a vector database? Because we have some Pinecone inside of Snowflake for you.
A vector database. Vector databases are super interesting. I'll do a separate video about them because they are just different in so many ways.
How about some spatial analytics?
I
Big
wouldn't be
part of
surprised
the
if
modern data platform,
Snowflake went
Carto,
into the vector
entire
database
UI,
game at some
in
point
this
in the
case,
future.
fleet optimization inside
Probably
Snowflake.
through an acquisition. Look at this. This is crazy.
Weights and biases, many of you know them. Company to do ML ops, and very, very important to be able to trace and evaluate LLM models, again in Snowpark Container Services.
These are very good.
And last but not least, if you want a graph database inside of Snowflake, relational AI running inside with fraud detection.
There we go.
You wanna
There
see
we
them all at the
go.
same
Oh
time?
my word. That is pretty freaking cool.
10 demos running concurrently. Give it up.
That's a good hype track. I love that. I love that. Are these people actually there on stage at the moment? Oh yeah, they're there. No way. They're
And
actually
by the way,
there.
we had many more
They're
amazing
actually
partners
there
and
running the
customers
demos.
do the integration with Snowpark Container Services.
Or the pretending
Thank you
it's
to
just a
all of you.
video.
Like, wholeheartedly, I would have loved to have like all 30-something demos. It was just too crazy, but you are in the pavilion, you're in the booth. Go visit them. We have amazing capabilities running inside of Snowflake.
That's a good way to finish the whole thing, I think. I love that.
Cole? So this brings us to the end of chapter 3. But this is the beginning. Not only the beginning of Snowflake Summit, but the beginning of a new era of new types of business logic, use cases, applications, services running inside of Snowflake. Hopefully all of you are a little bit in the, my head is spinning on what is possible now.
Absolutely.
How do I simplify my environment? How do I consolidate my environment? How do I get more value out of my data? And how do we collectively change what is possible with data? We're extremely excited. Thank you for joining us. Have an awesome Snowflake Summit. Bye.
There we go. There we go. I thought that was a really good sort of presentation. You know, I think it was it really spoke to the customers. It spoke to what people have been asking for. And what I didn't see was enough of like an explanation for people who are just, you know, stuck essentially. Like how do you become unstuck? What features did they help me do this? We talk about data governance, but what data governance features did we see today that really helped me sort of take on those soft challenges? And I think this is something that maybe Tableau and Salesforce have been actually pretty good at. They have lots of these sort of features that help you that kind of help you with things like observability. We saw one example of observability here, but I sort of mean that from a sort of a grander perspective. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty interesting keynote. I really enjoyed it, actually. It was my first Snowflake Summit. It's really nice to see these things. I probably missed a ton of stuff, but this is fun. This is what we're doing. Yeah, I'm starting to cover a lot more Snowflake. I'll be breaking down this whole keynote in 15 or 20 minutes at some point. It might take me a week or so because it's a really busy time for me at the moment. As you probably noticed, I haven't even finished going through the Tableau What's New features, but we're going to be juggling a few more things, going to be getting more help on the channel to help make sure things go faster. So thanks for watching. It's been a long one. I really appreciate the support, and I'll catch you in the next one.